to Batmania. I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And I am extremely excited about today's movie, Eric, because I have never watched it this way.
Neither have I.
And I have not seen this movie or each of these movies since they first came out. Today,
now that I have them,
we're going to tackle, naturally, it would be really weird if you hadn't, you know what I mean?
I may have watched them back to back. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I've done that.
But you've never watched it like this.
I've never watched it where it's cut together.
So today, obviously, because you clicked on this video and you saw the title, it's Batman: The Dark Knight Returns, the Deluxe Edition. And I just took this out of the shrink wrap, Eric, and had never looked at the back of the box and realized the inordinate number of special features on this on this set. I'm actually really excited about them now that I'm looking at it, and I'm going, why do I do this? Why do I buy movies and then let them sit on the shelf until I'm ready to do a video with them? There's a bunch of brand new documentaries. There's a comic book Frank Miller Dark Knight Returns documentary. There's a documentary just about Carrie,
Carrie Kelly.
Yeah, about Carrie Kelly. It's
I'll
crazy.
watch all that.
And then this is fascinating. There's another one called Batman and Me: The Bob Kane Story, which is fascinating because the Bill Finger documentary is called Batman and Bill. And there's this documentary called Batman and Me, and I'm wondering what that's about.
It's specifically Batman and Bill because Batman and Me was his autobiography title.
Is that why they did that?
Yeah, that's why they did that.
But I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
So I'm catching up now. That's really interesting
Yeah.
that's why they did that.
But I don't know why that's on there.
I don't either. And it's weird because the top one, which is called Masterpiece, Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns, calls it a new documentary, but nothing else says that, but that doesn't mean that they're not also new. I think maybe it's just saying that because there have been documentaries about that in the past.
Sure.
Or summer featurettes on things.
Yeah,
Maybe that's why it says that.
No, I'll have to watch those.
Yeah, so I'm really interested in doing that, and maybe we should watch those, and if any of them are really good, mention them at least on the next omnibus.
Yeah.
It's funny because the next omnibus is shaping up to be a kind of another Batman omnibus, because we have so much Batman stuff we've done recently. Mm-hmm. So anyway,
Dark Knight Returns ends up being another thing where I'm like, I don't know what new I can learn about that book.
Oh yeah, sure.
But then I guess there is a lot
But I haven't studied
that I
it
don't
the way
know.
that you have, so.
Like, I feel like there's a lot of in-between stuff. Like, I guess there could be new things to learn. Like, I know a lot about making that book, but like, there's a lot that I don't know. I just don't think it's out there. I don't know the moment-to-moment thought process of Frank Miller and some of his decisions.
So, I am stoked because, as I said, I haven't watched this since it came out, so I remember things about it, but this is more or less probably going to feel like a first watch for me, or like a fresh experience. So I'm really excited about it. This is going to be one maybe more than anything else we've covered or will cover. This is going to be the one that's going to be hardest for me to talk about while we're watching it because I kind of just want to watch this movie.
And you just read the book like you did with Year One.
Yeah, and the rule we kind of set for ourselves with Marvel Mania, which we've been holding ourselves to with this too, is once we get into the Mania, if you haven't seen it in a while or you haven't seen it at all,
can't go back to it.
You can't go back to it. And which is going to be funny because I kind of have been wanting to watch the new Scooby-Doo Brave and the Bold movie, but I don't think I'm going to because we have this rule where you're not supposed to. So we're going to have actually, I think overall, with the both of us, 5 blind commentaries.
Yes,
because
all 3 of the Unlimited.
Those Batman Unlimited things neither of us have seen, and actually I think one of those I still have to get. And then the last 2 that are about to come out, neither one of us obviously have seen.
And I hadn't seen Mystery of the Batwoman.
Right, yeah, but of course all the other ones we know. So anyway, so I'm going to lean on you a lot with this because you know this material better than I do, both the book and the movie. And I was going to say, I have gone back and reread some material for this just because it's been for some of these Year One. I may do another cursory glance at least at Killing Joke again before we watch that, even though I have read that somewhat recently. Just because it's a little bit easier to have a dialogue about the material when it's fresh in your brain, and I feel like that's kind of a loophole.
And how well it's adapting that material.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, shall we? I remember loving this.
Me too.
So
I have my issues, but
sure.
But I know that book really well.
But yeah, I remember being really surprised by how well the visual style was nailed, even though it's kind of a different thing. And that worked and was consistent and stuff. One thing before we start that I have to complain about is this cover. It's the most generic. Well,
I just invented the word. I meant to say god awful, and I said goffle.
Goffle?
It's goffle.
It's not bad for just some random generic Batman thing. but it's not Dark Knight
video game
Returns.
cover.
It does look like a video game cover. That's it doesn't even look like that costume.
And the back doesn't look like Dark Knight Returns either. Like that's not Dark Knight Returns Joker.
It's really random. I don't know why they did that, and I don't remember what the
they
other
look like that too.
Two looked like. I thought they did, but then what was weird about it is if memory serves, and I'm going back a few years now, obviously, because this is right before Rises. But if memory serves, there was a print ad that was something closer to the classic, like jumping in front of lightning cover.
Why wouldn't you do that as the cover?
And it was in the visual style of this movie. Why wouldn't you make like obviously that's the cover?
Yeah, no, clearly.
At the risk of doing the obvious cliche thing, well, that's the material you're doing. Just do that. I don't understand.
And there's hundreds of iconic images that you could have made the cover from this material.
You could make it look like BVS well before BVS.
Yeah, you could have done the cover for part 2, when it's 2 parts, doesn't even have Batman fighting Superman. Maybe on the back, but
how's
not
that not there? That's your big epic climax. Like how's that not there? But there's like 15 really big epic fights in this that all have iconic imagery. Batman on a horse would have been good.
Yeah. Batman swinging with the hole blown in his outfit.
Yeah, that would have been.
That could have been a cover
with the steel behind it. Yeah, that would have been really cool. But I want to say one of the covers did have him and Carrie both on it. So like, if memory serves,
I don't think so.
I think at least she was on one of them, but I can't remember. Well, anyway, yeah, I forget.
I can look it up while we start the movie.
We should probably get started anyway. I always do these gothily long preambles. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started, shall we? If you want to watch it with us, get out your DVD, your Blu-ray, however you want to watch it. Make sure that you're watching the deluxe edition, and let me apologize in advance to anyone who still just has the separate movies, but we thought this would be the best way to watch this, especially because we've never done it, and we were really excited to do it that way. So I don't know how I don't know how these are cut together exactly versus what it looks like with the separate movies. Obviously, there are credits at the beginning of the first one, so I would like to say maybe you can pause our video when you get to the credits of the first one and then start the next one. You can probably kind of finagle it. Yeah. Is my hope. But anyway, so let me just I give you that warning. This will not be perfect for everybody, but
this seems like the best way to watch it. Maybe we're wrong. Maybe we'll watch it and be like, oh no, you should definitely watch it in 2 parts.
Yeah, maybe we'll be like, at least you need an intermission, but that's weird because it's normal movie length.
Yeah.
It's a little bit longer than your standard movie length. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started. Get it to timestamp 0 and get ready to press play whenever I say now. Here we go. Everybody please press play right now.
Alright, so this is the cover of part 2. It's just Batman, generic Batman.
In front of some fire on a building?
Yeah, and then part 1 looks like that. Just generic Batman sitting on a building.
I mean, at least there's lightning behind him, but it's almost like, well, if it's lightning, if there's some lightning in a Batman shot,
if I didn't keep track of this stuff, and I was just a fan from the old days who remembered Dark Knight Returns being, the seminal Batman work.
Yeah.
I would look at those like, well, they did it wrong.
Yeah,
I might not even try it. So I've always thought this opening was weird. Not to this movie, to the material. I've always thought it was a weird way to open it. Okay. So Bruce Wayne is racing cars because he's like a thrill junkie, and like he's trying to do the Batman thing, but without being Batman, right? He's trying to get that adrenaline thing. First of all, I think that's weird, and I guess is inherently part of Frank Miller's take that Batman is like an adrenaline junkie. And he's not just doing it for, like, justice and the right reasons. That sometimes seems to be Frank Miller's take. I don't know about that, but I've always thought it was weird that, like, after this scene, it will act like he has done nothing for the past, like, 10 years.
But he's doing this,
Yeah, like, he hasn't done anything physical, that the Batman's, like, buried in him, and this has always felt weird to me. If I was going to make this into a movie, I would cut this.
I think it's incredibly easy to forget how this book opens.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's really, as you say, there's really nothing that calls back to it, and it ought to, because it sort of feels like it doesn't belong in a way. I don't disagree with the sentiment, especially with Frank Miller's specific take on the character, and I kind of prefer a Batman that at least in some way or another enjoys what he's doing.
Mm-hmm. And Frank Miller's Batman enjoys what he's doing.
And maybe not sometimes to the extent that Frank Miller takes it, especially when you get to All-Star. Mm-hmm. But like I have a hard time with a Batman that is completely all business and is completely stoic about it.
Mm-hmm.
it makes the ideological argument in this with Batman versus Superman and just the kind of two sides to this really complicated question in general more interesting if some of it is this kind of self-fulfillment thing.
Mm-hmm. That's real old to retire, right?
For police commissioner, I think so. But it makes a lot of sense. You have to kind of compare Batman and Gordon, obviously. Batman didn't want to stop either, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
That's exactly what I probably would do with it. I mean, it's weird because I live in a world that is, with Batman and comics, that is completely, built on Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah.
So, like, it's hard to even know what exactly has wended its way into stuff I love, but that's how I see Gordon.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. I really like this scene.
And I'm kind of glad he dies on the job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I'm glad he doesn't just retire and, like, dies in a bed or something. Like, he needed to die in that book.
Yeah.
And I'm glad that happened.
Whereas Alfred's death feels like it's out of nowhere and like he forgot Alfred existed.
Again, it's weird to, like, go back and criticize Dark Knight Returns. Obviously, I like to look at everything as objectively as possible. It's not perfect. Very few things are. There are things I might have done differently with Dark Knight Returns. One of them is I don't know that Alfred needs to be there at all. I kind of think you could have left it. You could have had him be dead already. And it's kind of hard to believe that he's as spry as he is. Like, Alfred doesn't seem to have aged at all in that book, right?
I mean, he's significantly older. I think.
But we play him so many different ages.
That's true.
He's always old, but, like, sometimes he's a little bit older, he's a little bit younger. He doesn't seem like a 90-year-old Alfred to me. Like, how much older is Alfred supposed to be than Bruce Wayne? Like, if Bruce is pushing 60...
30 years?
If Bruce is pushing 60, he should be pushing 90 then.
Yeah.
And he just doesn't seem... like...
No, and it doesn't seem like he has anything that he wants to do with the character, so it's weird that you wouldn't just be like, well, Alfred died.
And he doesn't...
He's just there to react to Bruce Wayne as he becomes Batman, and then he just kind of doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. And, I mean, you can make the argument he should be there so that you have somebody for him to talk to, but you don't do a whole lot of that, and then we get Carrie Kelly relatively early. It's interesting with such a kind of solitary Batman late in life that Miller comes up with a whole lot of ways to get him to people to talk to.
Yeah, yeah.
Just the sheer number of people in that book that he has to talk to.
Well, are we doomed or are we damned? Come on, make up your mind, guys.
Well, they're different people that all came with the same idea, I don't know that
they should
organized.
Coordinate.
Exactly, yeah.
They're just breakdancing.
It's going to be really hard not to just sit here and review the book because I just read it before we're sitting here and talking about this. But one thing I think is really interesting about this conceptually is that, and we've seen this with some other things too, of course, but I'm sure a lot of them, again, were influenced or inspired by this book. The idea that it's futuristic, but it's not futuristic. It's an alternate 80s like Watchmen is, but it's a future for Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
So,
which is a thing that I feel like people misconstrue a lot. They think it's a future book. It's not a future book.
They think it's Batman Beyond.
Yeah.
And it isn't. But it is a really, really heightened 80s to the point where it feels like, while you're reading it, at least, that we're in a dystopia.
Yeah.
And like, some of that could be, like, just skewed views of the characters you're following, but then, like, and it could just be Gotham. Like, I don't know what the rest of the world looks like necessarily, but then we do, too, right? Like we're mostly in Gotham, but then there's a lot of scope to this book, so we're... Hey, Eric, real quick, I just gotta ask you, do you shiv?
Really berserk, man.
But, I guess I'm hesitating with that point, because it's like, it's a really exaggerated 80s, so Gotham is always really exaggerated, but then, he's doing so much kind of criticism and satire about urban upheaval and political stuff and what's going on in the world right then that it feels like a dystopian future, kind of like 1984 in some ways.
But it's also a superhero book, and like I feel like you could look at any superhero book that's set in the present day and go, does this look like the future?
That's fair, sure. But not socially as much.
But I don't think this looks like the future socially. It's a heightened satire. I think this is how Frank Miller sees the world in the 1980s.
Yeah, sure.
Because the world's not that different in Born Again, either.
Yeah.
Like, Born Again's not as extreme as this, but it's not far from it.
That's true. I guess it's just the cautionary tale he's telling. I mean, I don't know if it's even a straight-up cautionary tale so much as just, like, showing, you know, two sides of a moral conundrum. But it does... I don't know. I've just seen what he's doing with this done more often with science fiction dystopias.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I kind of have to keep reminding myself that it's not futuristic.
And this is, I think, retrospectively, a really interesting choice because, including Jason at all, because Jason was recently introduced. And so to go to the future and use Jason, we would never do that now. Like, we would never just go, like, I don't know, the current thing. You're not going to do, like, Dark Knight Returns now and use, like, Duke Thomas? Or, like, Duke Thomas after, like, Duke Thomas had been there for a year?
Oh, I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, I think we kind of like to do that kind of thing all the time, right?
Okay.
Like,
really?
Yeah, like when we did the future stuff with Damian Wayne as Batman and things like that.
Well, but that was taking Damian into I was looking at Damian in the future. I just mean when we do stories like this, we tend to use just the elemental, like, classic elements of the characters. We don't pick stuff that just like when you look at All-Star Superman. Like, All-Star Superman isn't doing anything that happened in the past, like, 2-3 years.
That's true, but I don't know if I agree with your initial premise, which is this is, like, not as weird then, but would be weird now. I kind of see it in reverse. I think it's I think it's really interesting that he thought of that then, and that we would be more likely to do something like that now.
Maybe you're right.
Especially when we have a writer like Scott Snyder or Tom King that's, like, really huge on Batman, and we assume that everything they do is going to stick.
That's true.
If we did this now, Court of the Owls would be in it.
You're right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
But in 86, it's impressive.
Yeah. Well, because it's the first time we're doing changes like that.
Yeah. It's also really impressive.
I love this name's Walper.
The Get Real thing. Oh, and I forgot that psychologist guy wears a Superman shirt. That's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's got such a black and white view of things.
Second chance.
Yeah. But in the book, that is the only two-facey thing.
No, it's not. His entire crime is...
I'm
sorry.
I just read this right after reading year one, and I was impressed that he only had 1-2 thing with Harvey Dent, and that's what I'm thinking of.
No, this one is actually a Two-Face obsessed with a number 2, which I appreciate, because he makes it dark and psychological and serious.
Well, and he does that with a lot of the really classic Batman stuff, where he goes to the more absurd things and makes them really dire and not absurd at all, or at least not feel that way while you're reading it. This is one of the best examples of mixing absurdity into a really serious thing, where while you're reading it, it doesn't feel like silly or strange at all.
Yeah.
And then once you start breaking it down, you're like, well, wait a minute, there's some really weird, goofy stuff in this book.
The flying baby dolls.
Oh yeah, that stuff is insane.
That's the stuff that feels like Frank Miller that always shows up in Frank Miller, where it's like I feel like you can put Frank Miller in a box, but then there's all of these things where it's like, yeah, but then he makes these really weird choices where he zigs when you would zag and does, like, weird things. Oh, we actually get to do Zora. I forgot about that.
It's cool that Zora is actually mentioned here, and as it is in the book, and that we don't make it some other generic thing, because that's what we tend to do in animation. We'll make it something generic.
Yeah. And it's very specifically Zorro in the book.
Yeah, like, isn't Zorro in the public domain? Isn't it?
I don't
old enough
think
that that's
so.
a thing you can just. But I mean, you can't copyright titles.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason that you can't. But I mean, to in a thing like this also like show the movie or dramatize it in any way, like that gets dicier. But just having the name of it on a marquee, I don't know why you can't do that.
This decision is weird. They sees himself watching TV.
Yeah, I don't know why they did that. So we have made almost no comments at all about the actual movie so far.
Yeah. And Mark of Zorro was the silent film, yes?
Yeah.
There's not the black and white. I think Mask of Zorro is the black and white one that we've been talking. I think Mark
of Zorro is, if memory serves, the silent film. I've seen it. I've seen that film.
I've never seen it.
It's really cool.
It's one of the...
I took a silent film course in college.
It's last time I bring this up. So Dark Knight Returns is the first time we do the pearls from the necklace. Just we finally got to Dark Knight Returns. If you've ever seen Mark Twain's
Can I
pearls,
ask you a really stupid elementary question? Because I should know the answer to this.
Sure.
But I know how close they came out together.
Yeah.
Year 1 is first, right?
No.
See, I couldn't remember.
Yeah, no, Dark Knight Returns is A6. It comes out the same year as Crisis. Year 1 is the new origin story for Batman post-Crisis.
Okay.
Yes.
But wasn't it also dated 86?
If it is, it must start at the end of 86. Because this book comes out, like it's not monthly. Because they're big, chunky issues. Like there's time in between. I want to say some of them are late.
Yeah.
So I don't think this finishes until 87, even if it starts early 86.
Because, and I would recommend, if you go back to these, read them back to back, but Year 1 first, because in some really interesting ways it kind of reads as a sequel to Year 1.
That's interesting because he's always said they're in the same universe.
Yeah. It works really well that way. Mostly for minor things, like calling it a direct sequel isn't fair, and obviously it's a whole bunch of years later. But it's kind of interesting to see the future of that world, even though Year 1 wouldn't have been like the 1960s, because this makes it squarely in a particular era, and Year 1 is not that way. It's much more outside of time, and it feels much more like a 40s gangster thing. But to see, but like, obviously that book was all about corruption and how hard it is to bring Gotham back from the brink, and this is the future of that world where Batman did everything he could, but he kind of failed at it.
This is what Year 1 should have looked like. See how dark everything is, and see how we're like
look, the shadows and stuff.
Yeah.
But what I was gonna say is it's interesting reading them back to back because you look at Gordon. Just cheating on his wife with Sarah, and then he's with her in this. And there's some things like that are kind of
I have a theory that the Sarah thing is a mistake in this, and so he makes it part of the history. Like, I think he didn't think Gordon's wife had a name or something and just said Sarah.
I doubt it.
Because there's... What? But why?
Oh, you mean in Year 1 he goes back and changes it?
Yeah, like, I think he maybe made a mistake when making Dark Knight Returns, so when he did Year 1, he's like, well, this is where Sarah comes from.
And then he makes her a different... And it's really easy to do because she never shows up in the book. He keeps talking about her. You never see her.
Yeah.
I don't think she's in one panel.
I don't think so. I know she wants him to quit smoking.
Which is probably... but it's all stuff he's talking about. Yeah. And she keeps sending him to the store for stuff, and he hates all the vegetarian dishes that they make.
Billy is my favorite of all of the mutant slang. Doko Billy. Billy Berserk.
I keep reminding myself that wasn't like the name of one of them, because they have names like that too.
Yeah. Apparently the mutant language is inspired by / based on a like personal language that Lynn Varley and her brother have with each other.
Oh.
I don't know how... I doubt it's built around, like, slice and dice, but apparently they have, like, their own language that they communicate to each other.
That's also one of the things that makes it feel futuristic to me, is that it's got the degeneration of language thing. And again, it's easy to and obviously what it is exaggerating a thing that's actually happening, but looking at it as many years and decades now after the fact, it doesn't look as exaggerated, and so it makes it feel more futuristic because of what's happening in our culture.
There's a lot of things in both Dark Knight Returns and Dark Knight Strikes Again where Frank Miller comes off as prophetic.
Yeah.
And things that people don't think about. The big thing from Dark Knight Returns that people don't realize was not a thing then is the 24-hour news cycle.
Yeah.
Was not a thing yet.
Yep.
He predicts that. And there's some stuff like that in Strikes Again, like all those the weird web chicks that everyone like hates and makes fun of.
Yeah.
They're YouTube stars.
Yep.
But he wrote it in 2001, because 9/11 happens in the middle of it. Like, no, Frank Miller kind of knows what's going on sometimes.
And he also does... I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought because I'm watching this really well storyboarded.
And these two are clearly in Dark Knight Rises.
And there's a lightning shot. Yeah, I mean, I thought that when I was reading the book too. Well, and you've even got that word for a show thing. I didn't realize that actually makes it in the movie, but that's in Rises.
Yeah.
It is crazy how much better paced this is than Year One. Like, it's really weird watching these movies next to each other.
Well, they have the space to pace it well because they did it in 2 parts.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Year One's so short, you wouldn't think they would need all that.
Yeah, I don't
space.
think the issue was space with that. I think it was just lack of inspiration.
But they clearly really wanted to do this one.
Yeah, and with this, it feels like they're going back to a lot of their old standards of how they storyboard and create action for Batman the Animated Series. I mean, this is very Batman TAS.
Yeah. How do you feel about his performance as Batman? Because a lot of people don't like it.
I remember being kind of neutral about it.
I like it. It is not the voice I hear in my head when I read the book.
Yeah.
But
is it not rough
it.
enough? Is it not boomy enough? Like, because I read that Batman is like a human megaphone or something.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, it's a little stilted. But, like, I know... Maybe part of it's because I know the actor. And I know he is, like, a real gruff, like, angry old man. So, like, it just feels right. Like, he's a perfect casting choice in my head. Like, oh, yes, of course you get him because he is that guy.
The performance isn't what you expected.
Yeah, it's a little more stilted, but some people really don't like it. I don't have that. I like it well enough. It's not like the Joker in this, who's just amazing.
It didn't stick with me, so I don't remember exactly what he does with it except for what we've heard so far, but I don't think there's quite the range I might have expected. Like, this is a Batman that should, like, scream at people.
He yells a bit when he does his yelly bits, when he has his speeches.
It'll be interesting to see what his scene with Superman is like, because I don't remember it at all.
And
I don't know what Superman sounds like. I don't remember that either.
I don't remember who voices him. And we'll get to it. But I love his delivery of this is an operating room and I'm the surgeon. Like, yeah. I think he nails that.
Well, that's the big
stuff.
money line. Like, they probably gave him 15 takes on that.
Yeah. I really kind of wish I could go back in time and see what this book was like when it came out.
Yeah.
I mean, I have that a little bit. Because, like, when I read it, it was really weird. I read some Batman comics and nothing was like this.
Yeah.
I didn't like it at first. Like, it was really, really out there and weird. But it must have been even more so in 86.
Yeah, because you didn't even realize the ways in which Batman stuff that you had already watched and looked at were inspired by it in some way. And it's also weird going back and looking at it now because it's not weird anymore in a lot of ways.
Mm-hmm.
Because so much stuff has tried to mimic it.
I think it still is weird in certain ways. Like the baby dolls.
Yeah.
Like, that's a thing where I'm like...
Yeah, but then how many things like that did Bruce Timm put in the animated series?
I don't know. I mean, I guess, I don't know, it feels different in that book. I don't know why.
But I guess, historical perspective, I'm reading that book and putting myself back in that period and constantly reminding myself about all the things that he's doing, that he's inventing. Like, it's really... It's really... I guess what I'm trying to say is, I think it would be really easy for people who become big Batman fans or are young enough that they're just used to Batman permeating the culture that would read this and not appreciate how new so much of it was. Just stuff that we take for granted.
Well, just the idea of, like, Batman knowing the anatomy of people and talking about that, I don't think is a thing that shows up before this, where he's like, I know, like, 10 different ways to break your hand. I'm gonna do one that will heal, but it will hurt. It will always hurt. Like, it won't heal right. Like, that's the thing we do with Batman a lot after this. I don't think it's the thing Batman ever did before Dark Knight Returns.
Yeah, and I just think tonally, there just wasn't much like this before.
I really like that moment.
Yeah. I had a thought, looking at panel layout and the way these news portions are handled in the book that I hadn't had before, which was, McFarlane's looking at that hard with Spawn.
Oh, no, absolutely. Oh, yeah. No, it's hugely inspirational.
He just pulls that out of this book.
It's also the reason my mom could never read it. And I've had this with a couple of people I've given the book to. They cannot figure out what words to read with what picture, because there's words on top and bottom.
It takes a minute, but it's consistent. Once you're used to it. The deal is, most of us aren't used to seeing that many panels on a page, and he intercuts a lot of scenes and subplots together in a page, which I think actually ends up being really, really effective and makes it really cinematic. I'm gonna make a bold statement that I thought of while I was reading this again today, which is, I think this book is, and this might be fighting words for some people because it is a wonderful comic book. Don't get me wrong, but I think it is the exact opposite of Watchmen. Where while Watchmen remains the unfilmable graphic novel,
this is the most
filmable graphic novel because you look at the way all the subplots are intercut on one page, and you're playing a movie in your mind. I'm not doing that with Watchmen.
No.
But I mean, I'm playing like the panel layouts matter in a different way in Watchmen. In this, I don't think you're supposed to see the page. I think you're supposed to see the trees before you see the forest, and it's different with a thing like Watchmen, and so, I found myself going, I'm going to be really interested to go back and look at the movie and see how some of that intercutting is done.
Well, and given that it works on a 16-panel grid as opposed to the traditional 6-panel grid, he's able to slow down moments, and this is a thing I don't think he does before this, but he will do it forevermore. Where like you can watch like a leaf fall across like 5 panels.
Yeah,
like he's able to slow moments down the way that I don't think we'd ever done comics before that. It is really cinematic. And a lot of that's manga influence as well.
I've always said one of the things that's cool about comics is that you are somewhat in control of pacing. I feel like he is more in control of pacing than I am.
Nobody does pacing like Frank Miller. Like, Frank Miller's just amazing at controlling how fast or slow you read.
But as far as those panels go, when you're looking at one of those pages with a lot of newscast stuff, and there's a bunch of talking heads, usually the rule of thumb is there's another unrelated scene in 4 panels above it at the top. And the reason it throws people is because those scenes, I noticed it 3 or 4 times, those scenes tend to, we're not talking about this movie at all, those scenes tend to not have any dialogue at all in them, but there's dialogue right under them. And so people read that and try to attribute it to the panels above it. That's why it confuses people.
That makes sense.
If only he had put those at the bottom, people wouldn't be so thrown by it.
That makes sense.
But anyway, we should talk more about the actual movie version as we're watching
it.
Well,
and we just saw
we are never going to have any reason to do a vault on this book.
We just saw the scene where he throws a guy through the glass and it cuts his arm, and he's like he did it on purpose so that like he's gonna bleed out real quick, and he has to tell him, otherwise he's not gonna get medical attention. Which again is a thing I don't think. This all blew me away. The fact that they kept all of the parents' dialogue. I was like, surely that's the thing they'll cut.
Yeah.
And it's all there. I felt that way with some of the pimp stuff, and we'll also get to Bruno, the Joker's assistant woman. Her name is Bruno.
Yeah.
I didn't think they were going to put her in here.
Yeah. That's the chick with the swastikas, right?
Yes. And she's just here.
She's just here, yeah. It's straight off the page. They were not afraid of doing that. Well, so that's the other thing that I was trying to articulate earlier that I never quite got to, which is people take for granted how adult Batman is now. I don't just mean dark. I don't just mean serious. I mean, it's crazy DC let him put this book out in '86 with the language and subject matter, and I don't think it's gratuitous. It has to be what it is because it's, again, an exaggeration of that of urban blight and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Also, Hush is just Harvey Dent in this book. Like, visually, aesthetically.
Yep. That is true. So it's
all of this
really
plays so well. The two, it's twice as big, and
yeah. So far, I kind of feel like I'm just, which is what they were going for. I kind of feel like I'm just looking at the book I just read brought to life, which is what year one is, but really ineffectively done. Like this, the way this is paced, I feel like I'm about where I ought
it's a
to
translation,
be by now.
or it is an adaptation.
It's an actual adaptation, yeah.
So.
I'm having a hard time even paying attention, and of course we're talking, but I'm having a hard time even paying attention to, like, any bits that are missing or anything. Like, it's going to be really hard as we're talking about this not to assume things are here that might not be. For instance, did Gordon have the line, or is it later? Maybe it's later. I can't remember. Did Gordon have the line before he shines the bat signal about how they have 12 different ways of calling Batman?
I'm not sure.
Do you remember that in the book?
I don't.
He's got this great line where they're like, where somebody asks him, like, is this the only way we have to call Batman? Really, we're just going to shine a light? And he's like, no, we have 12 different ways of calling him, but we do this because because it sets an example, because it affects people.
There's one change,
and it looks great, by the way.
In this,
that's one of my favorite visuals in the book. Is just the way the bat signal is rendered on the side of that building.
Well, and I love that's really on the side of the building because it makes so much more sense to shine it into the sky. One of the things that is changed in this, that they clearly did because it's going to be two parts as opposed to one film. I don't think you would have changed it if you did this one film. Is the Joker does not really become uncatatonic until the end of this. Whereas he's already awake by this point because he talks to his assistant guy. This guy's like, well, Harvey wants me to make these bombs for him. That's not in this. See, he's just Hush.
Yep.
Or Hush is just him.
Hush is just him. I also found myself in the book kind of wishing that we had made more of a mystery out of whether Harvey was cured or not.
I've always felt like it was played fine.
Well, it's interesting watching Batman and other people wonder if he's behind some of this stuff, but we know already, and I kind of wish we didn't know.
Do we know?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I always remember it reading like kind of a mystery. And this is also a thing that we will do.
Yeah, because we cut to bad guys some. Is the problem. We cut the people that are working for him.
But he's always covered in the bandages, which I think is supposed to keep the mystery.
Oh. Well, I guess the problem is I already knew the material to some degree.
Well, and that's the thing that I think...
No, but they keep calling him Face.
I know they do. But, like, it's clearly a Two-Face killer person. Well, we don't know if it's Harvey. It could be something mimicking Harvey.
Really?
Yeah. I think that's how it's supposed to play.
Oh, is it supposed to play that way?
Because we do not see his face until he unwraps it.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. All right. Fair enough.
And it's one of the few moments in this film that I think they botch, but
you can only have one first time reading anything. It's problematic.
Well, no,
that was cool.
No, just his delivery of his lines.
Oh no. That's a point I feel the need to make about why I don't know how the mystery is supposed to play.
Yeah.
You've only got one first time of reading.
Yeah.
Anything.
And what we do with Harvey here is a thing that we're going to do forever, of, like, the idea that, first of all, we're going to keep fixing and unfixing his face. That's a thing we're going to do. But also, the idea that, like, the dark side completely takes over and, like, stuff the psychology of Two-Face in this book, I think, is kind of the blueprint for the psychology of what we will do with Two-Face forever after this.
Yeah.
Except for Dark Knight. Dark Knight kind of doesn't pull from Two-Face in this. This is a bit
Well, he's not obsessed with the number 2.
Yeah. Yeah. We played more just with the psychology of duality. Does he say that the freeze thing comes from Mr. Freeze?
I don't think so. I don't think it ever comes up.
Because I want to say at some point, because he uses the fear toxin stuff earlier, and he says that comes from Scarecrow.
You know what? I missed that too. So maybe.
Well, I'm not sure if it's actually in the movie, but in the book and voiceover, there was some stuff.
But I'm just saying I missed that if that's in there because I was wondering if the fear toxin was from Scarecrow, but I didn't remember him actually mentioning it.
I don't think. I don't think this entire movie needs voiceover, and it'd be weird to have some of the voiceover. I think for this early section, I don't think you get what he's feeling. Like, the way he talks about, how his body is throbbing and things like that. That's the one big thing I think this adaptation's missing. But I don't know how you do it, because I think you only need it here. Where he's like, I'm a man of 30 again, I'm a man of 20,
yeah.
You're not getting that. And I don't know how you convey that.
Yeah, because it's not just about physically how hard it is for him now. It's about how it's easy for him to ignore that because he misses this so much. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's why you leave the opening, but then I don't know how well that's translating. We're understanding how important it is for him to go back and do this again and how nostalgic he is for being Batman. So, because that is such an interesting juxtaposition of the book, and I'm not gonna do a whole lot of analysis during this commentary because I want to watch this movie, and I'm having a hard time not just going to those places constantly, but I don't want to because I just want to watch this movie. But anyway, there's a fascinating juxtaposition, of course, where Batman simultaneously loves what he's doing and is terrified that he's as bad as the people that he puts away.
Mm. This whole speech, I think, is delivered terribly.
Oh, really?
It's a real, that's never how I read it. I think it's way too understated. It's not, I don't know, it's not what I think it should be. I don't know if it's actually bad, but it's wrong to me.
It's really interesting that a Batman that answers that speech with you and me both, and has that bit with I think one of the mutants later, where he's like, "You're a mirror for me." Mm-hmm. Also loves doing this so much. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing I think we take for granted. We had never delved into the psychology of what makes a person do this like we did with this book.
Well, and also, before I don't think before this we addressed the idea of does Batman make his enemies? That whole idea I don't think had really been brought up before this. Also, what he does with Lana Lang is weird. I've always thought that was a weird choice.
Really?
Yeah, she's just, I don't know, maybe it's just she's old, but...
Oh, you just mean what she looks like?
Yeah, just physically, it was a weird...
I think it's fascinating to take, and it's this almost, at the time it would have felt like a Deep Pool reference. Obviously not anymore, we've used her so much, but...
There's the comic books. All the comic books that came out in 1986.
Yeah, I didn't like that we did that. I always feel weird about comics, especially if they're set in the same universe, but of the same publisher, showing up in a thing made by that publisher.
I don't mind it except for Swamp Thing, because Swamp Thing's in continuity with Batman. But the other ones I'm more alright with.
But
although I think Crisis was on there, and Crisis would be...
That's weird, and then all the characters from DC that you have to exist before Watchmen can, and I overthink these things. I felt weird about... it's a cool idea, but I felt weird in the Watchmen movie that there's... I think it's the movie that there's Batman comics.
Yes, there are Batman comics in the movie. Because
I felt kind of funky about that.
Because he does that thing in the montage where, it suggests that Night Owl stops Batman because he stops Batman from existing.
Yes,
because he saves the family in the alley, and there's Batman comics. Yeah. I love the mayor. I think he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Still pulling opinions. Still pulling.
Yeah, although they've radically changed his character model here from what it is in the book.
That's not the mayor.
Oh, that's not... Okay.
No, he was there earlier.
I didn't see him. I didn't see him.
I also think that plays weird where he has the whole thing and then he goes, "What? No, I don't live in the city." I don't feel it. I don't think it feels natural.
Yeah.
He's not... It doesn't seem like he's actually responding to something. He's just well, these are the words on the page.
I'm with you. It's somewhat refreshing to see this just rendered visually and doesn't feel the need to try the voiceovers, but then there's character motivations I'm missing without them.
Mm.
It's not as bad as the halfway thing we did with Year One, where it couldn't decide what voiceover it needed, so it left out the important ones and put in some of the insignificant ones, and relatively insignificant ones, and that's irritating. But it is very important when Gordon kills that mutant that he recognizes that it's a kid that's essentially been brainwashed, but when he thinks about his wife, he decides it's an easy decision. Having this material without some of that internal monologue makes me wonder how watchable this is and how much you would really appreciate the ideas and the arguments ideologically that are being made in it without reading the book. Like, can you, like, this is so well handled, I want to say you can watch this and you've experienced Dark Knight Returns. I don't know. Is it sort of supplementary before it's a good piece on its own? Like, I think it is a decent piece on its own.
Yeah, but it's not the book. Like, it's that thing of, like, the book is always going to be better, right? Like, it's... Yeah, I think if you watch this, you have a good enough sense of it, but it's still not getting the book.
But don't you get the story more than you get, like, the larger ideas? Like, I don't know how well...
I think you get some of it. I think you get enough of it.
It breaks down. And it will be a weird thing to do a rewind on, which, by the way, this is on my short list. This is the next animated movie I'm going to do.
Oh, nice.
And that's going to be really weird, because I don't know how to take it on its own terms.
And
it's the same thing. I had the same thing with Watchmen.
And I know there's a couple of voiceovers that we make dialogue. I know specifically the rubber bullets thing becomes dialogue.
Some of that we have to.
You have to make that dialogue. Otherwise, you have Batman shooting rounds out of a tank.
Yeah.
Although I don't think it's actually the line from in the book. It's rubber bullets promise. In this, I think he picks it up and he like squishes it. He's like rubber bullets because it's the mutant leader.
Yeah, and I don't know if this does the whole thing where he's got heavier artillery and he turns it off because he's afraid that he'll use it.
And this is the scene that Jerry Conway plastered all over the internet to demonstrate why Zack Snyder fundamentally misunderstands Batman.
Yeah. Because
it's something in BVS where he cites this page as "Look, Batman kills," and Jerry Conway just plastered that scene over the internet. I was like, did he read it? Because he clearly didn't kill.
Yeah. And part of the whole point of this is that he's afraid that not killing holds him back, and maybe he should be doing that. Meanwhile, you have all these people saying, look how far over the line he's gone, and he's a fascist. And one of the things I love about this book is that you have different people calling Batman and Superman fascists separately.
Yes. Yeah. We're not going to linger long enough when his hands come away. I don't think we linger long enough on the shot to let the impact come in to the audience. I feel like we should like when his hands come away, we should have held on that frame for like 2 more seconds. Like it's just not long enough for me. I don't think it resonates with the audience.
In a perfect world, I would have kept it black longer too.
This guy's so handsome. He also looks like Casey Jones.
Just because like all the stuff he says to that guy is terrifying, and that guy does not understand his predicament.
I'm actually surprised we haven't had that scene in a movie yet. That seems like one we would have done in Nolan. All black, and then he takes his hands away. I feel like that seems like a scene that... I say that sometimes.
In the book, he says... in the book, he says, I haven't even touched your tongue yet.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Now, you said one of your only complaints about this movie is that it's toned down. Was the phrase you used to...
No, that's your one.
For me. Oh, is that your one?
Yeah, this one is not toned down at all.
Okay. I'm sorry. We're doing these back to back, and I'm mixing conversations we've had. I thought there were a few things in this that you thought they toned down too much from the book.
There's one line that they changed to be politically correct that I don't think needs to be changed.
Oh, okay.
When they're going around the city interviewing people, there's that guy that says, that's pro... Because one of the brilliant things about this book is that he he's not creating straw man arguments, and he has people that support Batman that are bad, and people that don't support Batman that are good.
Right.
And it's really balanced. There's a guy that's like, yeah, I think Batman's doing the right thing. He's kicking the right butts. The butts cops aren't kicking. And then he says, I hope he goes after the homos next, and it's my landlord next in this.
Oh, okay.
That feels watered down, and I think there's one or two lines like that, but not like Year One where I thought it was really watered down. But it's hard to watch these and listen, so I don't really know what it was in Year One that was my big, where I was like, this feels really, really watered down.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's
this
the
scene plays
80s, the
differently,
sensibilities were different, and having that line doesn't make the movie homophobic and isn't saying anything about the people who are making it. It's that guy is a human being with flaws.
Yeah.
Who's not open-minded.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it would be a better idea to leave that there so that guy's problematic, and then you could have someone on the other side who's also problematic.
Well, no, and that's what's so smart about that scene is it's because that just makes him a dumb guy as opposed to a bigoted guy. It's important that both people on the right and wrong side theoretically would support Batman.
Yeah,
that's the point.
And we have to be careful not to assume. And like, you can usually tell when a story is doing this because everything is really one-sided and we're just making the same statement over and over again, right? Mm. You have to be really careful that you don't assume that anything that comes out of a character's mouth is a mouthpiece for the author writing it. I don't agree that Frank Miller is anti-Superman.
No,
with this material,
it's Superman through Batman's lens.
Well, yes, but his Batman is super flawed and not necessarily any more or less right than Superman is. By the end of this, it's a big question mark. They're both big opposite extremes, right? So Batman is the guy that feels like he has to control everything because the law is not doing it and the law is not always on the side of right, and Superman is the guy who feels like he's impinging on other people's freedoms if he doesn't just uphold the status quo and do nothing else. That doesn't make him anti-Superman. He is the opposite of a Batman who is
already an extreme.
Already kind of scary. And you understand where he's coming from, and you understand where both guys are coming from, but that's also one of the things that makes it feel kind of futuristic. Like, this is a Superman that's been doing this for a long time, and this is where he winds up, where he's just kind of throwing his hands up in the air, and he goes, I don't really know what else to do without turning into what I hate. And Batman has decided that that's already kind of an evil, but there's still a line he won't cross, so he doesn't feel totally like he's become the thing he hates. I'm really interested to see Frank Miller write Superman, even though I wish he was doing this 20 years ago, or 30 years ago.
His Year One, or whatever it's going to end up being called.
Yeah, but I don't think. I guess you are right when you say through Batman's lens. Taking him outside of Batmanville, I don't know that he'll write him the same way.
I don't know. I don't think he would. Like, I would think him writing just a Superman story would be very different.
Yeah.
So a couple of scenes ago, or like 2 scenes ago, he goes into the military officer who kills himself. As I recall, that's entirely created for this film. In the comic, it is 1 page of him holding the body, wrapped in So I think that's the only actual added material for this is because they're not doing voiceover. They couldn't do that scene, so they had to actually show that scene.
I was talking over it, and I don't think I was really looking at the screen that much. Do we get the actual shot of him holding the body? Do we get the flash?
No, we do not get that shot.
Why did they cut that?
I think so that he can kill himself. What we get is Batman walking down the hall. He leaves the gun with the guy, and then the gunshot. You hear the gunshot.
Interesting, because in my mind, that's one of those kind of iconic pages.
I agree.
It's weird not to have that.
I think we talked over the rubber bullets bit.
Oh, sorry about that.
Because he just picks up, he's like, rubber bullet!
Yeah, I remember that, yeah.
No, here it is. This is how we get rubber bullets. Which is a bummer, because rubber bullets promise, I feel like, is one of the iconic lines I see pop up in places. But that's just the page.
Yeah, and that's great, though. This whole scene is so Mad Maxy.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, and it's so weird to think that this book comes out before or the same year as RoboCop.
Wow.
Which is why they got him to write the RoboCop sequel. It's like, well, you're basically already doing this.
Yeah. You're already asking how much of our humanity we've lost already.
Yeah.
I really like how Batman talks about the mutants in the book, where he's talking to Gordon, or I think it's internal monologue where he's talking to Gordon, but Gordon's not there, and he's saying, like, I can't remember who the addressee is, but where he's saying, like, we never thought it would get this bad. We never thought we would go up against this kind of a foe. And he talks about the mutants like they're not human. And initially, it feels kind of ambiguous as to whether there's something more going on with them. The first time I read the book, I thought it was some kind of, like, Batman Beyond, like, splicing thing or something, where, like, they had done something to, like, genetically alter themselves somehow or something.
I've always thought the choice of mutant was interesting, given, like, we were at the height of the X-Men's popularity.
That's what they call them?
And I don't know if that's saying something, or it's just like, well, you're not the only guys that can use that word, like, it means a thing.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just big comic book fans. They seem like readers. I also like,
and it's just after Ninja Turtles get started.
Yeah.
So everybody's just using that word, right?
So one of the things I like about this scene, and it's a scene that Frank Miller will use a couple of times, not this exact scene, that's almost anti-Miller or anti, I think, how people view Miller. Batman getting out of the tank to fight this guy is the most tough guy thing he can do. He's like, I have to know. Like, and that's what I think people think of when they think of Miller. Is like the big tough guy that has to go fight the other guy.
Yeah.
Like, that's what Sin City is. But so often when he actually does those scenes, it's a stupid move, and they're treated as idiots for doing it.
Yeah, so
which is what this scene is.
So you're saying it's not just this big hyper-masculine, like, look how cool this big fight is. It's
no, yeah, he's making a mistake.
The character is doing that masculine, like, look how tough I am.
I just have to know if I can beat him.
Some of this is also going to be weird with that internal monologue because of the way she saves him and how important having a Robin ends up being.
Yeah. Apparently John Byrne suggests to Miller to do a girl Robin, and I think maybe the idea of doing a Robin at all. I think when he starts, he's not going to do Robin. I can't remember exactly, but I know John Byrne is the one who's like, you got to make Robin a girl.
I love how he kind of fixes the logic. I mean, he has to make Batman an extreme personality in order to do this. But I love how he kind of fixes the logic of why in the world Batman would use a kid sidekick. Because he needs someone to help ground him and hold him to human standards. It's so easy for him to kind of lose himself. He needs someone innocent there with him, even at the same time as he's kind of forcing them to lose their innocence. There's all these fascinating, like inherent contradictions. And I'm not in Frank Miller's Batman.
I'm not sure if that's the first time that's done, but that is how I have always understood Robin.
Yeah,
and I don't know where I first get that, but that's how I have always understood. Is that Batman needs Robin so he doesn't go crazy.
Yeah,
and I don't know. But then
the question is it a really selfish thing to do? Because he also, and I think this is really intentional, that's the reason he has her, and he smiles a lot around her, and he's so glad to have her there, but he also treats her like a soldier and puts everything in military tone.
Yeah, good soldier. But also...
And keeps threatening to fire her.
But she's also there by choice.
Yeah.
She chooses to be there. This is not Dick Grayson where he grabs Dick Grayson from a crime scene and takes him home. She is 100%
and can leave anytime she wants to.
Yes. She wants to be here.
And you got to remember all the different copycats you have in this, and the people who get themselves killed trying to be Batman, people who don't understand what he's doing. And she represents the people who are positively inspired by Batman, but who also have to be really impressionable and jumping in with 2 feet and aren't ready for it, and even with her, there's still that question of, is he creating more problems than he's solving?
So there's an interesting thing here where he says it's called the Batmobile, and that Dick named it, and it's something a kid would
It's
say.
something a kid would say.
So, All-Star Batman Robin, the most famous scene in that book is him berating Robin for making fun of him for calling it the Batmobile.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. That doesn't exactly match continuity. And it's supposed to be in the same universe.
I just need his Batman stuff to not be all in the same universe. I don't have a problem with him reinventing Batman every time he does it, where he just has different things to say about the character. But what if he was like this? But what, and it's not just what if he was like this. It's what can I say with this character that I haven't said before. And so I like the idea of the. I don't want to read it on a regular basis, but I like the idea of the crazy, pseudo-psychotic Batman who's kind of just a kid in a candy store.
And it's really interesting in Strikes Again. At the end of the day, Strikes Again is an interesting failure. Like, I don't think it completely works. I think it's a piece worth reading.
Yeah, and we're planning on reviewing that at some point.
Yeah. Well, because people want us to do 3, and I think it would be good if we did Returns, Strikes Again, and Master Race.
Me too. Although after this conversation, I don't know what new we'll have to say about
it. But maybe we'll just do Strikes Again.
We've still got more than half this movie left.
I want to reread that book before I reread Strikes Again.
Oh, of course, yeah. Oh, and I'm happy to do another conversation about it.
Access.
I had a really profound experience with it this time. I've always liked it okay, but I feel like it spoke to me this time in a way it hasn't before.
Interesting.
And it's suddenly a book that, like a lot of people have had, I kind of want to pour over now and reread a number of times. Somehow he looks older in this than I felt like he did in the book, but maybe I just wasn't looking at it.
I thought he looked really old in the book, especially when he dies.
Yeah, that's true. I'm really impressed with how often we're cutting. And how meticulously storyboarded this is. They are really keeping in mind that whole 16-panel grid because of how often we jump to a new shot in the same scene.
Yeah. I would also like to say, not only is this the first place of the Pearls, I think this is the first major Batman work that will not stop showing like flashbacks to his parents' death and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing. Like, it's almost a joke now. Like, you can't tell a Batman story without having him talk about his parents being dead. I think this is the first major work where it's not just like, and that's why I do this. Like, as if it's a thing that haunts him.
Yeah.
I think this is the first time we do that.
Well, and the reason people make fun of it is because I think people tend to mistakenly think that we do that as often as we do just in case there's someone who's not familiar with that origin story, where it's really there to either establish motivation, which I guess is the same thing because you already know that, or just to get you in the man's head. But then the problem with that can be, well, if we already know it, what new are we learning about it?
Or sometimes it's just there to remind you that his mom's name is Martha.
So, I mean, it's sticky. I mean, that's the problem with having characters like this that we just keep telling stories ad nauseum about.
That previous guy looked like the guy from Raise the Lost Ark. The guy whose face melts. And that guy had weird sunglasses.
I think it would have been really easy to make this movie, and this is what you would have had to have done if you did it in one film, and thank God we didn't do that. Just 75 minutes. It would have been really easy to cut out a lot of this new stuff and to not have the scope of the world, but that's what the thing is about.
Yeah, no, you need that stuff.
It's about Batman's impact on the world at large.
This is one of my favorite...
It's really important.
Just, like, I want to say psycho... Yeah, this is just my favorite psychobabble of just, like, here's why what I'm saying makes sense, even though it seems like it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
The psyche is like a sponge, and it's been hit, which is what's leading to your misleading statistics, but it will bounce back. I think it's hilarious. He's really good at, like, dumb psychobabble that sounds like a thing someone would actually say to defend their point.
There's a character in Nightfall, and I think it's Dixon who writes him in his detective issues, or early on, who I think is maybe kind of based on that psychologist.
Oh, interesting. Oh, I know exactly
Do you
who
know
you're
what I'm talking about?
He writes the book I'm Sane and So Are You.
I'm Sane and So Are You.
Yes.
And
he's
this
great.
guy writes a book called I'm Okay. I think he's based on this.
No,
guy.
he's definitely inspired by that guy. Yeah, no, I love that guy. He's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm working on Batman year where I'm reviewing all of Nightfall, and I just finished reviewing the issue where he's finally written out with the Riddler, which is not especially well handled, I don't think, but. Because he keeps building him up. He's in the background in like 3 or 4 issues leading up to it, and then finally it just ends with this kind of after-school special kind of lesson where it's like, oh, I guess things are more complicated than I thought. I thought maybe he was building him to like turn into a supervillain himself or something.
So, I'm pretty sure that's Terry.
Oh, really?
I think so.
That's fine.
So that panel or that scene,
I have to go back and look at the cast list for this because I don't remember a lot. Like I know Ben from Lost is the Joker, but I don't remember a lot of these. Well, I don't know who Carrie Kelly is.
I don't either offhand.
All right, I'll have to look that up.
I mean, you know who Batman is.
Yeah. But I had forgotten before we did this.
So I love that shot of the mutants where they're like giving their declaration, because that will be done again exactly in almost I think the same framing when they become the Sons of Batman, and they will have exactly almost the same speech, but this time they're for good. I also like that he picks a police commissioner based solely on her stance on Batman.
Yes,
because he only cares about that they have a stance, not what the stance is. Just he can't make this decision, so he has to pick someone who has a firm yes or no stance.
Yeah.
And I think that's.
I think that if nothing else thematically and politically resonated with people with this movie, it's apathetic, or excuse me, we in the book it's apathetic government.
Mm-hmm. No, I think it's interesting how well this still holds up as a critique of society.
And it's a little bit sad
how little has changed.
How poignant it remains, yeah. Well, and I was going to mention this earlier. We were talking about the ways in which he's prophetic. How many things cannot stop using EMPs now?
Yeah.
And we get an EMP in this, and it's used probably more realistically than anything in comics at least had been. Mm-hmm. It's not like you'd never seen an EMP before, but even The Matrix felt the need to spell out what it was for people in the audience that didn't know what an electromagnetic pulse was, and that was in 99. Yeah. He does it in 86, and everybody now is scared of an EMP going off.
Yeah.
That's another thing that makes it feel a little futuristic.
So this is a thing that I think could play into the like tough guys, hyper-masculine bravado thing, where like he's got to beat him again, but he's got to beat him for real.
Yeah.
Like he won the fight, but he didn't really win the fight. But it's
this macho thing.
It's not macho.
In his head.
It's about. He knows that they don't. I mean, maybe it is kind of tribal and almost barbarian.
Yeah, but that's because. But he's not
has
the
to earn their
barbarian.
respect.
But he's not the barbarian. They're the savages.
Yes, and that is the only way they will
things on their terms, or like Batman as a good detective has to understand the psychology of the people he's going up against.
Yes, and that this is again not him being what people think of Frank Miller as, of like the super hyper masculine like tough guy. It is a calculated move,
and he's not turning into them.
Mm-hmm. And the way he beats him
it's
is
manipulation
not,
before
it's not
anything.
brute force.
Right.
It is the precision, the surgeon.
Because he knows if you take their leader out, then you have control over them,
and you have to beat him.
Yeah.
Rob and Don, I think, show up in a bunch of Frank Miller stuff. I think oftentimes minions are Rob and Don. I think they show up in Sin City.
I guess he couldn't do that in the Spirit because they all rhymed.
Yeah.
But that is that idea, right? We have all these rhyming.
He thinks that's
names.
hilarious.
Well, and I think he's going back to 60s Batman when he does that.
You might be right. You might be right.
With the henchmen?
Yeah.
That all have names on their shirts?
love the mutant speech. It's so, like, absurd.
And again, it was a really good satire of the slang at the time.
Yeah. And I think still remains satire of slang of now.
It's hard to imagine going back that far, because we go back and we look at the 80s now as a simpler time, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard to imagine that all this bizarre slang comes about without the internet.
Mm-hmm.
Because now when we hear things like that, we immediately go, "Oh, that's
tech speak."
Yeah, that's a criticism or a commentary on text culture.
Mm-hmm. I also think
it's about anti-intellectualism.
Yeah,
this is what happens when people stop reading and stuff.
I think it's interesting,
and so on,
how this book is able to be so political and comment about so much, while also remaining almost apolitical itself. This book is not on any side. It just looks at the entire spectrum of the world and goes, here's all the stuff that's real scary right now.
Yeah. And I have so much respect for that.
Which is the thing I think is a mistake in a lot of modern political comics, is it is always from a side.
Yeah.
One or the other. This is not from a side.
This is making observations.
Yeah.
And it's understanding both sides.
Yeah, yeah.
It's giving you the arguments.
And this speech is amazing. The speech about whether he knew Pearl Harbor was coming.
Yeah.
And how it's too big to decide.
Well, and what really hurts my feelings, I thought of this while I was reading it, with that whole thing is, we know now that was all true. Like, that's all been declassified. And we know that the government knew that Pearl Harbor was going to get hit.
But I don't think it affects the speech.
And he says, no, it does.
Does it?
Yeah, because he says, we don't know and we'll never know.
Oh, okay.
And we do now.
Okay.
And it's really sad that he was right, is the point I'm making.
Because it's about what if he did.
Let's see if he says what he says in the book. And of course, yeah, he skips that part.
But that is the point of the speech. Is even if it is true,
it's kind of the point of the book, right?
Yeah.
Is that Miller can't come down on these issues; they're too big.
Yeah.
So he just presents them.
Yep. How do you feel about Carrie as a character?
I'm of two minds about her, actually. Everything I like about her is kind of thematic. Like I don't know that she comes alive really as a singular character for me. I think in a book where the bad guys where the mutant gang is really sexist, and you have some other characters that are really sexist, and even Gordon is to a degree, where he's like, oh my god, a woman's taking over. I shouldn't have said that out loud. It's really interesting that Batman does not have those hang-ups. And so I think the fact that she's a girl actually ends up being really, really important for the book. And obviously being as wet behind the ears as she is, and being so optimistic in this really, really pessimistic world, that's all really important. But she kind of ends up looking like a little bit of an archetype.
You think so?
To me. And then I'm not sure if there's any way around that, because, well, the point of her is she has no experience, so what is there to know about her? Like, it's not like a character like that is going to have any interesting background to bring to the table. She's just a student, the end.
But she does, I don't know, there's a sense of, like, spunk and fun to her.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which, is what Dick Grayson had.
But I don't know that she has a lot of dimension, but then that's part of the point of the character. So, yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't know how she feels about the world yet. Not really, in like an informed
Like, I really
way.
like her, but almost more in a functional way than anything. And I guess what I'm saying is there's no way around that, really. And, he tries to do more with her later.
Yeah, in both Strikes Again and Master Race.
Especially Master Race.
Yeah.
And I haven't read that in one sitting yet, but the impression I got from that was that ultimately that kind of is her book as much as it is Batman's. And I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but especially with that ending. I don't know if you remember how that ends, but...
It's Lazarus Pit, right?
Well, I don't want to talk about it, but I'm just asking you, do you remember how that ends?
I don't actually know if I read the last issue. I think you just told me.
Oh, okay. Anyway.
This is gorgeously animated.
Yeah, well, and I've been thinking that this whole time. It would have been really easy to translate this material and it just feel really heavy, and it's just like... And it just feel like it's bashing you over the head with how important it is. I think it was really smart to make it such a dynamic action piece. And it also would be really easy to just make it an action thing and to lose all the substance. I think there's a wonderful blend here where it's surprisingly watchable.
Yeah.
And again, it should be really adaptable material, but but I was afraid when it was announced that its place in history would bog it down.
No, it's really energetic and kinetic, and like it's fun while also being heavy and really dark, which is what the book is.
Yeah.
Is that spoken or is that narration in the book?
I'm pretty sure that's narration.
I thought so too.
I mean, this Batman doesn't talk that much.
Yeah.
And then, of course, that gets really interesting when you get to the Joker, because their Joker doesn't talk very much either till the end. He starts speechifying a little bit by the end, but...
Oh, but he's so interesting. He's such an interesting take on the Joker.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're in, like, sewage. I feel like all that might light on fire. Like, not necessarily, but, like, I wouldn't risk it.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, like, who knows what kind of diseases they're going to get from this. They should
Batman probably does know. He probably knows the diseases they're going to get. He's already inoculated
himself. Yeah.
I think he doesn't have his cape in this scene.
Yeah.
He gives it, like, a real distinct vision. I mean, the mud as well, but, like, this doesn't feel like any of the other action sequences. I think part of that is he doesn't have his cape, so, like, you're seeing his movements a little bit different.
Yeah, I think a lot of people's criticisms of Miller's take on Batman and with this material specifically made sense to me more before I looked at this harder and got more of a sense of the substance of it. You know, like it's one of those things where the stuff that sells it isn't the point of it. Right? Where like we were saying earlier, like it does look like this really. Let's see how he delivers this.
I think he delivers it really well.
Yeah, I think so too. There's an almost...
I don't know if he delivers as well as Adam West.
No, Adam West is amazing, and like this might have been too distracting, but I kind of wish they'd let him have a go at this.
Yeah, you'd always said in the lead up to this you wish it was Adam West.
Yeah, and I still stand by that.
I think he could have done a really good take. I like Peter Weller. I think Peter Weller makes a lot of sense, especially, you know...
The gruffness and raspiness of his voice would have I think, enhanced the material in a way it kind of detracted from the 60s Batman movies because he was still supposed to be like a 30-year-old Batman. But him sounding elderly, I think, would have... And I think maybe that's part of people's issues with Peter Weller is he doesn't sound old. Or maybe he doesn't sound old enough.
I mean, he is.
No, I know he is.
He's pushing 60 or 70.
Sure, but he can go back and voice an animated RoboCop and he'd sound exactly like he did.
You might be right.
Right now. I mean, I think even Kevin Conroy's, when he wasn't very old, doing an older Bruce Wayne in Batman Beyond sounds a lot older than this guy.
But you were making a point that you stopped yourself because you wanted to hear how they delivered the line.
Yeah, and
you're making a point about people's
now.
Criticisms of this book. And
I'm sorry, thank you, because I wouldn't want to just leave that hanging. I think like we were talking about earlier, it is really easy to look at this material and say it's just like edginess for the sake of edge, and it's all about this like just hyper masculine stuff, and that's the aesthetic and the trappings of it. But there's a point to all of it. For instance, it's impressive that he's able to build a scenario where Batman fights the mutant leader and all the mutants stand back, and we're not wondering the whole scene why they don't come up and try to help him. You know? How many times have you seen that scene where you're like, why aren't the minions jumping in and helping? Why do they just like, you know? And again, for that guy, it is this macho thing, but it has to be, and Batman has to play into that.
Okay, so this is the end of part 1. So
okay.
Let's see how this... And for those at home, you're probably knowing that we're coming up to the end of part 1.
I think the Sons of Batman thing is chilling.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure that's the last...
That's
and then it goes to black. Yeah. Okay, so that is obviously the cut. Although that works really well, the transition.
Yeah, I think so too.
Almost like they did on purpose.
So that's what... So it ends up looking like that's what breaks him out of the catatonic state, which I actually think works better than in the book, because in the book it's kind of nothing?
No, it's Batman. It's just,
okay.
He took longer here. Like, it's all of the early reports of Batman that breaks him out of it.
Okay. So I guess it just depends on when he's looking at the TV.
He was looking at it earlier.
Okay.
Oh, we've got a 3 months later tag. Is that much time passed in the book?
I'm not sure. Maybe it's ambiguous about it.
I think we've missed the my favorite psychobabble, which is when one of them is on the TV explaining why Batman is 100% responsible for his actions, but the people he inspires are 100% not responsible for their actions. That's my favorite.
Yeah.
It's such doublespeak. So, this is one of the few times ever I have had an incredibly close relationship with a work where when it is adapted, someone is exactly in my, like, as I hear it. He is 100% like the voice I heard in my head with Frank Miller's Joker. Both here and in All-Star. And his Joker is just so interesting, but like, he nails exactly how I think this Joker sounds in my head before this book, before I see this movie.
Yeah, it's really cool. I thought it was a fantastic interpretation, and I was really excited when he was cast, because I love him. But and he just seemed perfect because the one role I knew him from before this, and of course he's done a lot of other things now. But well, he's done one big major thing since this, or since Lost. But he was a master manipulator and super creepy and. Really good at making people think things were their idea, and he's obviously the perfect choice.
How do you feel about Miller's Joker?
I think it's fascinating. I don't know that I have like an articulatable take on it.
I'm just kind of picking brain about different aspects of the book as I just read it. So this
like I said, immediately one of the most interesting things about it is that he looks really no nonsense, but he's inciting everyone else to be what you expect him to be, and that whole bit where he goes to Letterman and he says everyone's different and I want to make them all the same.
He's anti-individuality.
Yeah, he's doing something with that is related to what the mutants are doing. Like I said, it's really chilling when they become Sons of Batman. That's an interesting way to visualize that the Superman thing from what it is in the book. Because in the book, it's a bunch of little shots of his cape and like how do you do that? Oh, you just pan up and okay.
Well, and I think that's done really interestingly, where it's almost like when this, it's almost like it's for the audience that first watched this when it came out in 2 parts, where it's like, are they gonna do Reagan? And like it really builds to, are they gonna do Reagan? And then you see him, and it's like, oh, they're doing Reagan.
But yeah, real quick, the Sons of Batman thing, and related to the Joker thing is really interesting because I think the commentary there is about youth not having not having guidance and not having a good leader and someone to look up to, and so they're just like clawing their way for anything. Just looking for leadership. At the same time as we're saying, the government, people in the government are just out for themselves.
Well, also how malleable youth are and how easy it is to manipulate them, and how easy it is to imprint on them.
Yeah.
This is a thing I always thought was weird in the book. Specifically how it's drawn, like, that Batman is like this crazy old lady.
Yeah.
Always felt like a real weird choice for me that I've always dug.
Yeah, and he must be just crouching, because she's not big. Or at least she doesn't look big initially. I guess it's a perspective issue. But yeah, he is kind of crouched. Yeah, it's crazy that they just do her straight off.
I believe I remember an interview with Bruce Timm where it said that the rule for that was there can be no movement.
Yeah.
Which I guess, I don't know. Like, I feel like, why does it have to be a rule? Like, I just assume that's how they would animate it, but I don't know.
But you get in Bruce Timm's head, and you can see why he would feel the need to come out and say that, because I think that's a given with him. After Batman Harley Quinn, that's not a given, right?
Yeah, no, you're right.
If he wanted to play it for comedy, if he was doing a spoof of Dark Knight Returns or something, that's how that would be rendered. It would be Dead or Alive.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it would be. No, and it's really effective.
Mm-hmm. It actually sells the design.
And how distracting
visually
would it have been?
It's one of the reasons I think it would be really difficult to adapt into live action.
Yeah.
Is Bruno in particular physically?
Sure, because you just, as delicately as I can put this, you'd have no support.
Mm-hmm. I like that she uses a, what do you call those? A slingshot. There's something so, like, childhood innocence about that.
Yeah. Yeah,
there's Flash, there's Justice League. Okay, I don't like that at all.
Yeah, I don't like that at all. That doesn't work.
Unless those are supposed to be, and it never comes out and says it, so it's not. Unless it's supposed to be like, those are the things that we put out based on like the
things.
Yeah, like those are the watered down, sanitized versions that we sold to the masses of what's really happening.
Yeah, there's a
that just seems like a
mischievous side to her, which is part of which is why you have the slingshot. I think where she's not like if Superman had a sidekick. You know what I mean? Like she's innocent and she's about as wholesome as I think you could be in this world. But there's also some Bart Simpson in her. Like that's why you do that.
Yeah.
She, like Batman, really enjoys doing this.
Yeah.
And you notice she wins a lot of fights with pranks.
Which adds to the kind of kid sense of her and the innocence of it all.
I'm really glad I went back to the material before watching this, because I would just be sitting here watching this. You would have to do all the talking. I would have nothing to say at all.
Those could be anything.
I felt like this...
Those could be anybody's hands.
I felt like this train scene kind of lingered in the book.
Oh, interesting. Is that supposed to be a Daredevil nod?
I kind of tuned out a little bit.
Just because it's a blind guy, like...
Oh, interesting. I don't know. I had that thought with a couple things in the book, though.
Now you've had Dark Knight Returns, you really should read Ronin, since it's what he does right before that.
Well, and again, for the record, I have read Dark Knight Returns before.
I mean, now that's fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
Sorry. And you also recently read Born Again, which shockingly comes out the same year.
Yeah, it's insane.
Can you imagine doing both of those works in the same year?
And Year One real close to it.
Yep.
Which I know you don't like as much as I do, and
I also haven't got back to it in a long time.
And relatively looks like a thing that you could have maybe written in a weekend, but
I think one of the things that works in this so well is...
I don't remember him still being in that getup when he talks to Superman in the book. Maybe he was. Sorry, go ahead.
I think the...
yeah, he had already taken off his mask by then, I think. But I might be
one of the things I think is interesting about Dark Knight Returns is that it feels... I think it's really good at, while you're reading it, making it feel chaotic and haphazard, while it is, like, intricately plotted and structured.
Yeah.
Like, I think everything, like, has, like, setups and payoffs, and, like, it's really well structured. But it feels like it's just, like, he's just going nuts. Like, he's just drawing whatever he's thinking of in the moment. It's really good at feeling like that while it's not that.
Well, and that works really well thematically because of the chaos that's going on in the world that he's commenting on. This Reagan looks like a skeleton.
Yeah.
He's gonna keel over any moment.
This is a great bit. It's just really funny.
Yeah, in the book it's funnier because he says road to hope, but he says like 3 other things that are the same sentiment. He just won't stop with the colloquialisms. Because I think the point is he's constantly trying to look like he's in touch with the masses, which is entirely I don't know what word I'm looking for. Calculated.
Yeah. I just noticed the guy who takes over for the mayor, that's clearly Frank Welker. He's just doing his Fred voice from Scooby-Doo.
In the book, he has like 2 paragraphs before he says that line.
Glad I'm finally out and I don't have to deal with this crap anymore.
Yeah, he talks a little bit about his retirement for a second. He's not doing that right now. But I think this movie does a pretty impressive job of excising things without feeling like it's missing anything. While you're watching it, anyway.
I think maybe the most, like, unsung thing that Frank Miller did in this and Year One, like, we always talk about his influence on Batman. I think it's a huge mistake to not mention the fact that he revolutionized Commissioner Gordon. Like, in this and in Year One, like, everyone does his Gordon, like, just from here forward.
That's a good point, yeah.
Like, I'm not saying... like,
and Gordon's not just a plot device.
Yeah, it's not that the Gordon before this was, like, the 60s Gordon.
Yeah.
But, like, he wasn't an interesting and complex, fully developed character.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, did he have very much dimension to him at all? And without, and you can ask this question about a lot of things with Frank Miller. Without Frank Miller, would we be doing as many cop stories? In Batman, you know?
Yeah, I don't know.
Again, it is crazy just the sheer number of things that come directly from Miller that just don't think about. And the eagle represented freedom.
So, I was just talking to someone at work today about this page. And, so interestingly, on the page, doesn't fly to him. There's nothing on his arm. He's just standing like this. Also, not an eagle, it's a hawk in the book. I remember it as an eagle because of this movie, because that scene is hilarious. In the book, it is a hawk.
It's so insanely on the nose. I'm very distracted by this, and yes, I get it. A bird and I get it. And I mean, it's maybe too in your face, or maybe it's on purpose and is supposed to be funny in the book.
I think it's supposed to be funny in the book.
I think so too. I think it's really easy to take the book too seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is serious, but it's easy to read that as a humorless book. It's not.
No, it's having fun with it.
And I mean, there are also like comedic lines in the book too. Like the characters are not all entirely humorless either, but like there's humor in the satire because it's satire and it does that well. But there's also realistic humor in some things people say. There's even a couple of like Bruce Alfred comedic moments in that book.
Yeah, and we use almost all of those lines in BVS. In BVS. Oh man, it was so weird in the theater in BVS to hear the line about the wine cellar and like, I don't want the next generation to have an empty wine cellar. Like, it's just that line and like, I don't know, like it was so weird. I'm like, well, you just put that line wherever you wanted, now didn't you?
Yeah, and it's so obvious that BVS is trying to be this in all of the really superficial, obvious ways.
The ways that like someone who didn't read the book would think it is.
Yeah, or like a 12-year-old who reads this for the first time that doesn't have any sense of the world or any perspective on history. Ooh, that looks great.
BVS's take is very much what we were talking about before is like it's just missing all it's missing all of the subtext and the subtleties and the intelligence of the work.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna cry foul and say we should have just made him Letterman like he is in the book.
He is Letterman. I mean, at least that's his... well, I'm not sure if he is Letterman. He's got a name that's real close to David Letterman.
That's not what I mean. He doesn't look like Letterman in the movie.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Why is he not just Letterman? We did Nixon. Why couldn't we have a Letterman look-alike? It's weird. There are a couple of things in this movie where it seems like they're afraid to be too 80s because they're afraid a modern audience won't get it. But they did Reagan, so make it straight up what it was. If you're gonna just be consistent about it. One of the reasons this is a really good thing, this is really ripe for adaptation. Besides the fact, of course, that it's just really popular, and this was inevitable, probably, that at some point someone would do this. Even though it's the future of an established world, it totally sets itself apart so much and is so much its own world that it doesn't feel like we're missing anything by not having any movies or comics or anything before it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that after this... there was no reason... well, I guess after BVS, too, there's no reason to adapt this material live action?
I would have said that before today.
Okay.
While I was reading it, I was yearning for BVS to be an adaptation of this movie. And I can't believe I'm saying that because I didn't want that. Mm-hmm. But then I saw that movie. Mm-hmm. The problem is twofold. You had Snyder who didn't get the material, and you had a Superman movie that would have made it impossible to tell this story. Mm-hmm. You can't tell this story out of after Man of Steel because you just ended a movie with Superman basically saying you can't push me around, government. You can't tell me what to do. Mm-hmm. You can't then go into this where he's kind of like a tool of the government. Mm-hmm. And but obviously the ideological questions are way more interesting in this than they are in BVS. Even if BVS had been better written, it's not as interesting to do a story about Batman going off to try to stop Superman because of what he might do. I think it's much more interesting to do that in reverse. And maybe I'm just saying that because I just read this book. Or for both of them to feel that way about each other. You could maybe do that, where it's like, well, yeah, Batman, you might be afraid of what might happen if I get mind-controlled or I fly off the handle, but you're just as scary, and here's why, you know. And I guess that movie sort of tried to do that, but it wasn't very effective.
That's crazy, because we won't even have that technology in the 22nd century.
Uh-huh. Well, 21st century. Who knows what will happen in the 22nd?
That's true.
I don't think he has threatened to fire her enough, but we've also been talking over this, so I don't know. The line reading is not emphasizing that it's a thing that we're bringing back a lot, so I don't know, but we've been talking because it's commentary. What's really funny is Frank Miller in '86 equates cloaking technology with voice recognition technology as both being wildly futuristic. Because he tells Carrie, you just tell the computer what to do and it will listen to you. You won't understand this technology. It's way over your head. And then she's like, is that a cloak? And he's like, I'm very impressed with your technical understanding of things.
Yeah, we just beat up all those guys that are my age. Why don't you go fight them?
And it's a really... See, I think we're trying to make him look like Conan O'Brien or something. I wish we just straight up made him Letterman. It's really weird, and we're still calling him David, and I forget his last name, but it was something hilarious. I'll look it up. It was hilarious. But, it's on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, in the 90s, we made fun of Letterman in Warner Brothers cartoons a lot.
Oh, interesting.
And we like to do a voiceover where whoever was playing the fake David Letterman would do that laugh and be like, and I missed that here. I wish that was here.
I love Miller's Joker in the white suit. I think it looks great. In some ways, he kind of he almost reinvents the Joker from the ground up in a way that he didn't with Two-Face. Where he's like, no, this is how you make the Joker serious and scary.
Oh yeah, he seems like an entirely different character to me.
Mm-hmm.
And like the yin-yang idea and the idea of the two of them completing each other is there, but in a different kind of way. But weirdly, I think that was also somewhat of a new idea.
I think so. Well, and the idea that he doesn't get up out of bed unless Batman's running around.
Yes. Yeah. Now, I should also say that as much as we've been talking about all the things that you didn't have before Dark Knight Returns, it's also really easy to give Miller credit for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be careful about that.
And a lot of people say, well, Batman wasn't dark until Miller. I'm like, no, he's dark throughout the entire 70s.
Miller has a really...
Endocrine.
That's what it was, and that's hilarious. David Endocrine. That's the best. So they gave him the name, but they didn't make him look like Letterman? That's really strange, right?
I wonder if they asked Letterman to do it, and he said no, and they got Conan, so they kind of made him more Conan-looking.
Is it Conan? Actually voicing him?
No, it's actually Conan voicing him.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Oh, yeah, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
No, I just said a minute ago I thought they were trying to make him look like that was my guess. I was shooting in the dark. I didn't know it was actually him voicing him.
Yeah, no, it's actually him voicing him.
Okay, I would have done a David Letterman sound-alike and made a Letterman. I don't like that. Well, it's weird because this is obviously an alternate 80s, and Conan isn't a talk show host yet.
Mm.
He's not even writing for The Simpsons yet.
No.
The Simpsons isn't even on yet.
Yeah, The Simpsons doesn't even exist yet. I also think this Joker is weirdly, really darkly funny.
Yeah.
He is funny, but...
I didn't read it that way.
Okay.
Wow, this is disturbing.
Yeah.
In just the way it should be. I mean, it's great. But yeah, the reason it needs to be a Letterman is because of how much of a part of the culture and the social dynamics that he's satirizing.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about the ways in which the media is part of the problem.
Mm.
Ace the Cloak. I did a double take when I first read that and was like, does she say axe? That would make more sense, right? No. I guess ace means axe. Okay.
And we don't, we don't have Ace the Bat-Hound in this like we do in Batman Beyond.
That's true. That's true.
That must have been too silly for him to bring back.
Maybe he just didn't think of it. I don't know. I don't know if that would have been too silly for him. With the crazy doll bombs.
Yeah,
Why does the doll talk? Would you explain that to me?
I don't know. They have personalities.
Okay.
No, that's part of what's weird.
No, but there's
about
only the one though, because they have the other ones that don't talk.
I thought the twins talked. I thought both.
Okay, but there's like. There's another one somebody has that doesn't talk, and then someone's like, I want the one that talks, and I don't know.
Then I don't.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that makes...
I like how grumpy he looks there. This Batman emotes wonderfully.
I think what makes the dolls feel weird as opposed to Batman the Animated Series is Batman the Series would do episodes about something like that. They wouldn't just throw it into the middle of like a Joker plot or something.
Yeah.
Like, that's what makes it feel so weird to me. Like, they're not clowns or anything. They're just dolls. I guess maybe
no
they're
explanation
toys.
as to what that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's what makes them feel so weird to me.
Is that also a futuristic thing? Is it AI? I don't know what it is. I'm very confused by it.
Well, I mean, we do stuff like that in comics all the time. We've had people able to make robots since like 1942.
Yeah, I know, but that's like on the market, and I mean, it's just a doll, right?
Is it?
I don't know what it is.
Oh, I don't remember.
I don't know where they got them.
Yeah, I don't either.
Okay, I was assuming I missed something.
No, I think he just makes them.
Okay.
I think. Was that echoing the Superman score a little bit? Like Superman the movie?
No, not.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. Actually, now that you say that, no, I know I see where you're getting that. Yeah. Maybe a little bit, but there's also a little bit of Elfman there too. There's a lot of things you can point to with some of the soundtrack. But anyway, I'm sorry. What?
I'm trying to remember if we have the line at the beginning of this when Bruce checks his message where she called him and said, I miss you. Or no, I'm lonely. Sorry, it's not I miss you, I'm lonely.
Yeah. Selena is another reason this is interesting as a sequel to Year One.
Yes.
Because I don't see this happening to her. I mean, like, I don't see her aging this poorly unless it's the version you had in Year One.
Well, and when we were talking about Year One, I said, like, you were like, well, why do you do this to Catwoman? I'm like, so the Dark Knight makes sense that she runs a brothel or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely looking at these as companion pieces, right? Or at least he wants them to line up in some way.
Yeah, no, he's definitely writing Year One to be the beginning to this ending.
I don't know if I just, like, read him wrong or had a weird interpretation of him in the book, but I don't remember... I remember thinking, this Joker doesn't smile much.
I think he smiles a bit.
But, like, more toward the end. Like,
yeah, well, as
there
Batman brings it out of him.
Yeah, there are scenes here where I feel like he was a lot more no-nonsense, or at least he was refusing to show, like what he was really feeling in a moment. I can't decide if that's a mistake or not.
And that's something.
I mean, that's her name of the book. I don't know.
It's something else, Frank Miller, but I can't put my finger on it. That name shows up somewhere else, but I cannot put my finger on it.
Is it a Sin City thing? Is it one of the girls in Old Town, maybe, or something like that?
Maybe, or it might be All-Star Batman. I'm not sure. That name shows up somewhere. I can't place it, but that's a real specific name, and I've heard it before in something else. So
I'm assuming Miller makes up Corto Maltese for this story.
As far as I'm aware, this is the first we ever hear of Corto Maltese.
And obviously that's why it's in 89. Because they were looking at this hard from the very beginning.
Yeah.
To the point, famously, where there was discussion about just doing it.
Do you think the world would have been ready for that?
No, I don't.
Could you imagine the state of superhero films now if in 1989 we released Dark Knight Returns?
Can you imagine a really studio watered down version of it where they write that script and it's real close to this on the page.
Well, you don't get Tim Burton.
And then they're scared to death of it, and so they really water it down.
I can also,
massively.
but I can also see like the RoboCop version of it.
Yeah,
I can see the R-rated.
not as a
version.
big studio movie.
Maybe
though.
not.
That's
you're
the
right.
problem.
You're right.
Is nobody expected RoboCop to do huge guns. Batman was the most expensive. Was one of the most expensive movies ever made at that point.
Yeah.
They needed that to be a hit because of how much money they spent on it. I don't know what RoboCop cost to make, but
I think it's relatively cheap. I think because I think it's not a canned film. It's one of those studios that doesn't exist anymore.
It's a glorified B movie.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, right? I always hesitate using that term.
No, I think it has somewhat of a budget. I don't know if it has a huge budget, but I think it has a decent budget. So I don't know.
I haven't thought this out yet. I don't have a read on this, but I want to ask you if you do, because you've spent so much time with this material. What is he doing with Selena in a Wonder Woman suit?
I don't know.
Okay.
I think it's just
degrading.
Yeah, it's DC fodder. Like, I think it's just Wonder Woman also exists in this universe. I don't...
Yeah, but there's something provocative about it, right? Like, it's twisted, it's wrong, and Joker did it to her. Like,
yeah, I'm not sure.
But maybe, I don't have a more concrete read on it than that.
Maybe it's like one of the popular costumes. Like, it's the idea that, like, in a superhero universe, people would dress up as superheroes. Like, they would want women of the night to dress up like superheroes. Like, maybe there's something there. I'm not really sure. I've always just thought it was weird
within the world of it. But he
the
does
distinct choice.
He does thematically because everything he does is for a reason in this book.
Mm-hmm.
There's more to it than that, I am sure, but I'm not totally sure what it is.
It could also...
That's a creepy clown mask.
It could also be him building on the thematic idea from Elektra that superheroes shouldn't have normal girlfriends, and that, like, he deserves someone better, and, like, wouldn't it be better if she was Wonder Woman? Maybe. There's some kind of commentary there, I'm not sure. So weird looking.
Well, he makes a disparaging comment about how poorly she's aged.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing she'd look good in is a Wonder Woman outfit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm sure that's part of it.
Also, that seems like a revolutionary and bizarre idea at the time, and maybe even still now, that these characters wouldn't age well. You assume they're always going to look great.
Yeah.
Catwoman, of course, is going to be a gorgeous 60-year-old woman.
Yeah.
The idea that she's not going to end up looking like Susan Sarandon, but would end up looking like... I'm trying to think of someone that aged not great. But, like, you
I don't
never
do that.
think of...
I don't want to name any names.
Yeah, but, like, you can never... you don't ever think that. You always think these characters are gonna age gracefully and great. I think that's such a great idea.
Which we do over and over and over again with Batman.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite versions of that is Kingdom Come, where he's got he's built himself a skeleton to keep himself together because he's so messed up. I think that's great.
This was another scene. I don't know how this didn't get an R rating, but Killing Joke did.
Oh yeah, seriously.
How is this PG-13?
And that's part of why I was remembering what you said wrong or about year one to this, because I assumed it being PG-13 there was something I was forgetting.
No, we're gonna watch the Joker run through this town run through this and just shoot people.
And he got a batarang in the eye.
Yeah, like how is this PG-13 but Killing Joke is R?
Oh, it's nuts. Yeah.
Like, it's just... Like, I don't know how they made... Like,
well,
it's still impressive they were allowed to make this movie.
And I'm not saying Killing Joke shouldn't have been R, but that's more of a subject matter thing before it's anything, right? Like, our standards for things in this country especially are really kind of strange.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people feel like are somewhat backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Where anything overtly sexual goes way, way up.
Yeah, I'm not saying that Killing Joke shouldn't have been R.
Yeah.
I'm saying, how was it R and this wasn't?
Yeah, sure.
Like, the fact that they were get away with this in PG-13, like, yeah, it's very strange. And it's just so much more loving than that movie is. It's really unfortunate. And I guess year one as well.
But again, I also think this is just easier to adapt. I mean, like, I'm not, I don't mean to lessen the impact of it. Like, it's, there are all kinds of things they could have done to it that would have made it a lot less effective. Like I said, I'm still, all the way through this, so impressed with how often the scenes cut. Like, it gets the format of that book. It knows how to translate it because it was so cinematic already. But, like, I don't think they knew what to do with year one. I don't think they knew what to do with Killing Joke. And those are both arguably not as adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the best way I can put it is go back and change history.
Mm-hmm.
This would never have happened, obviously. But Frank Miller could have conceptualized and realized this as a film in the first place.
Sure.
Like, year one is a comic book.
Yeah.
This also is that. I don't mean that he doesn't use the medium to its fullest effect.
Well, it's also interesting that he's drawing this, where he does not draw year one.
Right.
Like, it's just... How is this PG-13? Like, and there's blood when he shoots people.
Yeah. Yeah, he is horrifying.
Yeah.
I also think this story, obviously on book and on the screen, is a series of action sequences that separately could have all been climaxes for some other story.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting how he makes that work.
Also, as far as I'm aware, this is the first time, and we will do this with every superhero and supervillain after this. This is the first time where we do the love thing, where that, like, in a weird, sick, twisted way, he loves Batman. We will use that as the explanation for a lot of supervillains and their obsession with their hero.
That's right. But also, importantly, and this book does this magnificently, it's not just that Joker loves Batman, it's a love affair. It's that Batman feels bad for not killing the Joker and takes and feels guilty and takes responsibility for everyone he's killed. Miller goes as far as saying all the people I've murdered because I didn't take him out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we're given a number of 600.
Yeah. And
Joker's killed 600 people.
And do you remember this? Joker says, I don't keep count, but you do.
Yeah,
and that's why I love you. Yeah, I love you for it.
He's stabbing him, blood's coming out. How is this PG-13?
It's nuts. The coloration and lighting in this scene is really impressive. And again, some of the same people, obviously, made year one. How is there no shadow work in that? When you look at how brilliantly they're translating that to screen here.
I've always thought this was weird.
Also, have you had this thought? It's a river of blood, and like it's colored like blood, but then there must also be blood in the water because of all the people he just killed. Mm-hmm. But it would be that shade anyway
because it's the Tunnel of Love.
Because of the purple coming off the walls. Anyway, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
I've always thought it was weird that he, like, snaps his neck, but not all the way. I've also always been disturbed and fascinated by the idea that you can turn your own neck and finish it?
Yeah.
Like...
Oh.
I love how that laugh just stops.
So, obviously on screen, it's much clearer what's going on in the scene than in the book. I think it's kind of difficult to tell what exactly Batman does to the Joker physically in the book. Because he has a line during that scene, and I didn't notice it here, if it's here, where he says something about the fact that he doesn't kill, but sometimes he wishes he could. I forget what exactly the line is. But then he's blamed for killing the Joker, which is the reason Reagan finally pulls the trigger and sends Superman after him. And in the book, I just thought it was kind of ambiguous. It was hard to tell if he's actually really responsible for it or not.
No, I've always taken this he's not responsible, because Joker finishes the job. Because he tells him to finish it, because he's, like, stuck there. And he finishes turning his neck, and that's how I've always taken it.
Yeah. Well, and clearly that's how it's interpreted in the movie version, but I was just looking at it, I was having a hard time telling what I was looking at.
Okay.
And I had to keep reminding myself that there was a Batarang there, because there are a lot of panels where it just looks like a big gaping black hole, which is not what it would look like, but that's kind of what it looks like. I think sometimes, sort of like watching a Shakespeare play versus reading a Shakespeare play, when these things are done well, it can be really useful to watch a film version just for reinforcement, as long as you're careful to understand interpretation versus what was originally on the page, right? Mm. Because things obviously get changed in film versions. So this is so faithful, I think that by and large, if there's something that you didn't get in the book and it becomes clearer in the movie, it's probably what Miller intended with it. Mm-hmm. And obviously the things that we just talked about with that scene, clearly that's what's actually happening.
Well, that's how I always took it in the book. That's great. It is a bummer that Miller never talks on any of these things. Like,
yeah, I wish he'd come in and do a commentary, especially for this one, because it's so good.
A commentary, or like, I guarantee you he's not on any of those documentaries.
Well, he might be on the one that's actually about the book.
I hope so, but like, I have a feeling.
Okay. I don't know if he's ever shown up for anything with the animated things.
I don't think he has.
He's pretty elusive. I mean, he doesn't tend to do a whole lot.
I don't know, he's in a lot of documentaries, I feel like. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe not anymore. I feel like in the early 2000s he was in a bunch of the comic books.
Yeah, but I just mean more recently he's been more elusive.
Yeah. You know what? And the cars look way better in this, the CG integrated.
Yeah. I think so too. Everything about this just screams like we better get this right or not do it at all, and then you just wish that they would have that attitude about everything.
Yeah.
But again, I don't mean to be a broken record. I also think some of that work was done for them already. Mm. If they just translate. Like, this above a lot of other things, especially animated, despite, a few liberties taken and some things that you have to cut for time, really does feel like they use the book as a storyboard.
I think it works as a storyboard. And it looks like storyboards in some ways.
Yeah.
Especially the news things.
You see the way the blood drips on the car there? That's a really cool detail.
They have the dialogue above and below. Like, that's what a storyboard looks like.
Yeah. And the only thing that makes this maybe not as adaptable as the way I'm describing it, visually, it's super adaptable. Obviously, once again, the voiceover thing can be problematic. And you know the main reason I don't think the voiceover's here? It just slows your pacing down.
Yeah. Yeah.
This movie is so kinetic, I don't know if it could be that kinetic.
And have the voiceover.
It would be like English dub anime, where you just have to talk so fast.
Yes, that's just Fred.
Look at how shifty-eyed he is.
He will not look at the camera.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's just all these public servants who don't want to be held accountable for anything. That's obviously one of the most poignant things about the book, right? Is just the idea of public servants who aren't really public servants, and are just concerned about their public perception and nothing else. Okay, maybe the scene is in the... I don't think this scene is in the book.
I'm not sure.
But I might have just skipped over it, or I just don't remember. But see, since we're not doing the voiceover, there's no other way to get that in there.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of late.
Mm-hmm.
To suddenly have that. Because again, that's all information we had already, and serves as motivation and tells us...
I think it's hilarious.
How he feels, you know, why he feels the way he does when he has to kill the mutant kid at the beginning.
This scene is so funny. They're sore losers.
Mighty sore losers, yeah. Superman's suit is brighter than I expected it to be.
It's pretty bright in the book.
It's more muted than that, though.
Is it?
Mm-hmm. Well, maybe I'm wrong. I just always remember it that way because they're fighting on kind of bleak backgrounds. Yeah, okay.
This is a scene in the book that always really stuck with me. I think maybe with a lot of people. The Superman, like, when he's, like, skeletal, when he gets struck by the bomb and with the lightning.
Yeah.
And he's just, like, laying on... It's so... it's such an evocative scene. It looks a little silly here when he... when he, like, balloons back up. When he goes into the sun.
I don't remember what that looks like.
I remember
Again,
it not
I saw this
great.
once, and the first part I remember better than the second part for some reason. I was impressed with how real those clouds look. It's almost like they just went up and shot clouds.
Oh, there's also a thing with the silhouettes of on the bars earlier that they keep when Bruce is looking out. It's because he's in a cage. The bar's going over his face, or like he's literally he's metaphorically in a cage.
This scene is, I think, the best evidence for why Frank Miller is not anti-Superman.
You think so?
Yeah, because I think Frank Miller, when he writes this, feels really bad for Superman. I think the idea here, if I'm not reading too far into it, is he almost we take Superman to his weakest point, and he's not this all-powerful god like he's portrayed as so often. Like, look how quickly this happens to him.
Mm.
And he's given everything, and that's even said in the book, and for what? Like, he's just trying to protect the status quo of a world that doesn't appreciate what he stands for. And so, like, he's gotten misguided, certainly. But again, is he any worse than Batman? He's just kind of on the other extreme.
I guess it doesn't look as bad as I remembered it looking.
But I think Frank Miller wants the world to live up to Superman's ideals, and he's written an exaggerated world that's so far away from it, it's never going to get there.
Mm.
And so that's why Batman has an argument.
Right.
Like, what he's doing is maybe necessary, because what Superman is doing is just upholding the status quo.
And the status is
not quo.
Well, and I mean, to go to another Whedon bit, in the Age of Ultron, he has that line about you want to protect the world, but you don't want it to change.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what Superman's doing.
But then at the same time, you have a Batman who is maybe becoming too much of the thing he's trying to fight in order to fight it. And if we don't, uphold the principles that we're fighting against, how can we expect to set an example where other people will change? And how does it not become just a cyclical problem? And so then Batman starts looking more like Superman, weirdly, just coming at it from another angle, where in their ways they're both upholding status quos.
Mm-hmm.
One is kind of practical, and one is sort of more of the heart, I guess.
Yeah, this is a big speech. I think he gets a little yelly here.
But he's not like, he doesn't get angry yelly. He's so reserved.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if it's even yelly as much as just loud.
But yeah.
It would have been really unfortunate if it didn't break. It was like too strong for him.
I like the way he talks to them like they're children.
Yeah.
And I think that this voice works really well for that. I see what they were getting at with Peter Weller and the particular performance he's giving. But I wonder what Miller would have to say about it.
I imagine he would love it because he just loves it when his work is adapted well.
Yeah, sure.
Because apparently,
I just mean I would love to know what he would have to say about how far away it is from what the voice is in his own head.
Mm-hmm. Or maybe he wouldn't watch it.
There is something a little bit, and again, despite himself, he doesn't want to be this way, but there's something a little bit sadistic about Frank Miller's Batman.
Mm-hmm.
He smiles at the wrong things in the wrong ways sometimes, and that's what he's fighting against. And I don't get that as much from the performance we're getting from Weller.
This looks like The Walking Dead. And this is the ending of The Dark Knight Rises.
That's true. That's another thing that Rises just it takes from this material. And it's going to be really interesting doing these back-to-back.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's our very next movie.
And it just doesn't feel as big in Rises.
Which is weird, because there's more people, there's more extras
Yeah.
than what you're seeing on the street.
Also, Batman on a horse for some reason is just inherently cool.
I think some of that is the Zorro background, and I never ever had this thought until just now, but is that why it's there?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd never thought about that. Maybe.
Yeah.
I assumed it's because that's what police use, like riot cops use horses, and like that's what you use to control a crowd. It puts you above them.
Yeah, that's the explanation for how you get a horse in there and it's not silly, but what makes Miller think of it in the first place?
Yeah, maybe this is the Zorro thing.
Again, there is something symbolic going on there.
I also don't know if he creates the Zorro thing.
I thought
Something
that
in my head
him.
telling me that he did, but I don't know for sure.
If he did, I bet that is intentional. I'm not saying that there's any inherent symbolism in that, except just in looking at Batman as a classic hero.
Well, but also
type, you know what I mean?
But also in this being so much about how people see Batman, how he affects them, inspires them. He himself is inspired by a figure.
Yeah. I also think there's a nature versus technology thing going on there. It's interesting that he opened the movie in a tank, and we're toward the end, and he's on a horse now.
Yeah.
He's also gonna beat Superman
that's the other
with
reason.
technology.
That's the other reason you have to have a horse, is because it's an EMP. You can't drive around.
Right,
so
yeah.
The Batcave seems to be guarded, because he's still got lights and stuff.
But yeah, that's part of why I said that with the MP. That
Yeah.
it's definitely a like back to basics kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. It's the reset.
Where there's a commentary here, of course, about technology taking us over, and over-reliance of it turning us into something less than human.
And creating walls between us.
Yes.
These are all these people that you've seen in snapshots alone now having to be brought together.
Yeah. Again, in the pre-Twitter age.
Yeah. Which is even more so now.
Yeah.
Now, I kind of knew what he was talking about. It's weird, right? And we did not listen. Like everything that's prophetic, we did not listen. We just kept chugging along.
This reminds me of the Powerpuff Girls episode where the Powerpuff Girls have to spell out for the townspeople every step of how to beat a monster.
Yes, I know that. I know that.
that.
That's the one where they go up to the cloud. They're like, "We're not going to save you."
Yep. It's taking that culture of dependence idea that I'm always talking about from 60s Batman and taking it to its most extreme, most absurd degree. I love that episode. I always show cartoons before movies when we have movie night at the house, and that was the last cartoon I showed.
Oh, nice. Is that scene in the book?
I really don't think she's actually in the book.
In the book.
I don't think she shows up, but I might be wrong.
She's got a completely different outfit now. That's fun.
Yeah, that's hilarious. And she has a lightning bolt in her ear. And again, intuitively, if you weren't familiar with this material,
well, it's interesting. All
and you
of this
forgot about
stuff
all
is
the
intercut
build-up?
with the Superman.
Yes.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, that's a thing that's a little bit surprising about this movie is that it doesn't try to intercut more. I kind of thought maybe it would, and it doesn't. But erring on the side of simplicity was probably smart.
Yeah. Yeah. It is there, but it's in silhouette, so you don't actually see the secret.
So you don't actually, yeah. I honestly did not realize that's what was going on in that scene. But the reason they do that in silhouette in the book is because all the stuff with him during that scene is in silhouette, and he finds a person that he thinks is Sarah, and he's afraid she's dead, and then it turns out she's not dead. So this is the most surprising choice as far as DCU stuff in the entire book to me. 1986, all the characters he could have gone to goes to Green Arrow.
Okay, so in the first draft is not Green Arrow, it's an FBI agent.
Oh.
It's a not character at all person.
I didn't know that.
And the second one is my guess is he picks Green Arrow because he's like Neil Adams' student. Like, they're real close, and he's kind of his mentor, and that's my guess for why he goes to Green Arrow.
Because Green Arrow is not a popular character.
No.
At this point.
No.
And obviously now, anybody going back to this book that's familiar with like Green Arrow on TV would be all excited about the Oliver name drop. It's weird the way it's dropped because you see him for a couple of pages before the Oliver name drop happens. Even with the arrows at the end, I want to know how many people read this book when it came out and had no idea who that was all the way through the book. That could not be an insignificant number.
And also, in the 90s, when Oliver Queen dies, this book is part of why he dies.
Oh, is it?
They put him in a trap where, like, he can get his arm taken off or explode.
Oh, that's really interesting.
They won't take his arm off because they don't want people to think they're trying to say, like, we're going towards the Dark Knight Returns future.
Yeah.
So they just kill him off instead of taking him just out of action.
Oh, that's really interesting. So they're like making a point with it.
Yeah. Which always annoyed me that they were so careful about that, and then in the mid-2000s, we just won't stop being like, and we're going towards Kingdom Come, like everything is leading towards Kingdom Come.
Yeah, and Marvel's doing that with 2099 quite a bit now.
Yeah.
Where they're not scared of that at all.
I like that because when 2099 came out, it's not supposed to be alternate, it's supposed to be the Marvel Universe in 2099.
It's in the future, yeah.
I like that that's canon. It's going to be weird when we get there.
Yeah, but I like that.
And I'll be old and have
But I like that there's already precedent with changing things with time travel and stuff, that if 2099 doesn't actually happen that way, we can assume, I mean, obviously there's going to be another generation, but like, at least the way things are right now, we can kind of assume that there will be something that changes the history as opposed to, or maybe it's already been changed. But at least at one time, that was the future of the Marvel Universe.
Well, what's weird is that when we get to 2099, it won't be the future of the Marvel Universe.
Right.
It'll be the present of the Marvel Universe. So weird. That's interesting.
And of course, we're not likely to be alive to see it, but
it's unlikely.
Could happen.
Yeah.
Did you see my post about that? A few weeks ago, I posted on Facebook and I said my big goal is to make it to 2099 so that I can see what happens with Marvel in 2099. I mean, will there even still be a comic industry the way we look at it?
Well, it won't be Marvel anymore. It'll just be Deadpool comics.
I mean, think about how long that is from now.
Yeah. But also how not long it is from now.
Yeah. Just compared to when we were kids and that felt like a million years away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I really like that shot. I'll go to school. I'm Robin. I learn my lessons on the street.
It's just crazy how dense this material is. And how much it gets done.
Do you think if you adapted this straight, kind of like how this is, as a live-action film, it would be too much for one movie? Like,
Yeah,
I know we just watched it in 2 hours.
I kind of do.
But, I don't know, for some reason, I feel like if you release this movie, people would be like, there's so much happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of do.
Because
and I think it would get accused of false endings.
Yeah. Because I think I think the first thing I think somebody would do in adapting this is get rid of the Two-Face stuff.
Yeah.
You would just merge all of that with the mutant stuff. I think that's the first thing somebody would do trying to adapt this into a film.
Well, I think it would be easy to mistakenly think that this is almost a series of vignettes before it's a singular piece.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. It's that it has chapters that then are put together to create a whole. I think Two-Face and the Joker, not bookending it because you now have Superman, but like Two-Face at the beginning and Joker more toward the end, I think is really important because they're both characters that are pretending to be rehabilitated.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we have a couple of very different examples of that because we're asking that question about who's responsible for the madness, and
I also really like that they have a dialogue back and forth, and it's not just two people just like yelling and punching each other like it is in BVS.
Yeah.
There's an ideological difference going on between these two.
Yeah, and isn't it interesting that even while Superman is definitely a tool of the government here, he still doesn't feel like at some point he could like take over the whole world and be like a real actual fascist? Like,
No, you're right.
I mean, a fascist of one. Like, you can make the argument that there is
he is facilitating that.
Yeah, right. Fascist in his behavior, but not that that's the way he views the world. And Batman, obviously, much more so.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult not to say he's a little totalitarian.
Mm-hmm.
And that whenever people say that in this, they have a point, but it's more complicated than that. because the police and the government aren't getting the job done.
And we'll take that to its nth degree in Kingdom Come.
Yes.
We will do a completely totalitarian
when he's got drones all over the streets. And
it is surprising we have not tried to adapt that into an animated film yet, right?
I would love to see it. I want to see that done.
That also feels like it should be two parts.
It would need to be 2 movies, yeah. I just love the aesthetic of that so much. I would love to see how it could be translated.
Has Kingdom Come fallen off in popularity? Like, I know I've never been the biggest fan of it, but I haven't gone back to it in maybe 15 years. At least 10? No, it's gotta be at least 15 years.
It seems like one of those things that's kind of, in the canon.
No, like 10.
Where people still, think of it fondly, but I don't hear people talk about it as much as I used to.
Yeah. It hasn't, stuck around the way Dark Knight Returns has.
Yeah. But I think the novelty of it wears off because we do a lot of those kinds of things now, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, but Dark Knight Returns the same way.
Well, yeah, but you can't compare those things because it wasn't influential in the same way.
That's
true.
It's
newer.
That's true.
It's not the same thing.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like when this was announced, everyone was like, yes, of course. I feel like if they announced Kingdom Come, you would have a lot of old... I think there's a whole generation that almost doesn't even know about Kingdom Come.
Sure, yeah.
It didn't permeate forever the way that it seems to be doing.
Robin, this is a recording. This technology is really advanced. You're not going to understand it, but just, bear with me. It works, okay? Just believe me. We can record people's voices and play them back. I don't expect you to understand how that works.
One of the things that's interesting in Dark Knight Strikes Again is that he brings Ollie back and gives him a robot arm and makes him the superhero voice for the left.
And they do that in Legends.
And uses the question as the superhero voice for the right. And they put those two as the diametrically opposed opposites within the superhero community that's still working together. It's really interesting. And obviously, the question makes perfect sense given Steve Ditko and all of that.
Right.
And what that character starts as. As opposed to really what he is in the DC universe. This is not something you would do if this was a movie, right? You would not introduce Oliver Queen in the 4th act of your movie.
Yeah. Is BVS even a little more embarrassing considering how far before that this came out?
Yeah, they did it for you.
Yeah.
It's interesting how much this doesn't feel like... It's not telling us how important it is. It's not overanalyzing itself.
Right. It's not self-serious. And again, the book didn't do that, so if you just adapt it straight, but it would be really easy in feeling like you have to either in, holding an audience's hand because you think that the material is too dense and they're not going to understand it, or just in... being too obsessed with, again, the history of it.
Also, of course, this is not a mech suit. It's just a big suit of armor.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think people always remember that wrong.
Yeah. I don't have a problem with it being a mech suit in BVS, but, it is not a mech suit. It's just a big suit of armor. Which I guess, it's not technological, really. It's more medieval.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. It is more medieval. Which again is playing into that idea of this Batman who does have a lot of tech and gadgetry, but I think the idea is supposed to be he's seeing the way technology has changed and ruined the world, and he's looking back to those older things. It's almost like this, wisdom that comes with age kind of idea where eventually we all turn to fossils and we appreciate that we have nostalgia even for periods we couldn't have existed in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this moment always felt so tacked on to me.
Oh yeah, it's tacked on here.
Yeah, but both are in the book. Yeah, and he's dead. We haven't seen him in 20 minutes. Well, I guess we saw him looking at stuff and holding his arm.
I'm assuming there's an explanation toward the end here as to why the manor is burned down?
Yeah,
because
they
if
blew
they
up on
don't,
purpose.
I know what the reason is.
Oh, okay.
What I'm saying is, if all you got was that scene and you didn't read the book, you'd have no idea what was going on.
Oh, yeah.
See?
Yeah.
If they didn't do that, you'd be like, what was going on there? It happens that way in the book, too. Like, it's happening, but you're not sure why.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wasn't sure how the movie handled it. You had a bad day, Clark.
Yeah. And
then,
still no one knows that he's Superman.
Yeah, but Catwoman tries to...
Yeah.
So I want to say real quick that my experience with this just today is really interesting, and I would highly... I mean, obviously, if you're watching this with us, you've now watched this, whether you've read this book recently or not, but I highly suggest people go back and reread this and then immediately watch the movie, because it's really, really cool just how close it is.
Mm-hmm. Also, that McFarlane rips that off, too.
Oh, yeah.
The heartbeat.
Yeah, I've talked about that. I keep finding it in things before he did it, but Miller does it. Well, I say I keep finding it in things. It's in Born Again.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in this.
Mm-hmm. Well,
but it's in a lot of Born Again.
Given that we know that he inspired by the Talking Heads, like, this is where he gets it, right?
Well, and then, I mean, it goes without saying, because one of the first things he thinks of in collaborating is to do a team-up with Miller and put Batman and Spawn in a book together.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I've ever articulated this thought out loud, but obviously I wish we'd gotten to see Miller actually tackle Spawn.
Oh yeah, that would be really weird.
Yeah.
He would call it psychoplasm.
I mean, apart from Batman?
Yeah.
Just, like, give him 4 or 5 issues and see what he does with it?
Yeah, we just get the one issue with the gang.
That's right. That's right.
Which doesn't really feel like a Miller issue, other than that...
It's just really gritty and violent.
Well, and the two gangs have like a mutant's kind of speech pattern.
That's right. It's all coming back to me. I've been trying to excise all of that from my brain, but... So, if you only watch the movie and you're not familiar with the material, I don't know how well... And again, we're talking over it, but I don't know how well the reveal of Batman wasn't actually trying to kill himself works. Because in the book, that's really effective. Where for a while... You think he just knows he's not going to make it out alive, and maybe like the world is actually better for it, and the real idea is he decides, yeah, people aren't really ready for, or maybe it's just a bad idea for Batman to be around.
It's almost the opposite of the Inception idea in Begins. Of people shouldn't have a symbol, that they can mold into anything they want it to be.
Yes, absolutely. Well, there we go.
Good job, Bob Goodman.
Good job. It almost should have said like unwritten by, because it's like not really, but mainly his job was just to decide what pieces shouldn't be there, because sort of like Watchmen, most of that is word for word from the book. Like he's not changing a lot of lines.
Ariel Winters is the girl who voices Carrie Kelly. She's on Modern Family.
Oh, weird. Okay.
She's on a sitcom. I forget what sitcom, but she's on. I've heard her name.
Good job.
Yeah.
Well, that was delightful.
Yeah. It's really good.
And we've got to stop calling this part 1 and 2. It's just a movie, right?
No, and it plays completely like that. I didn't realize, or I never noticed in watching the 2 parts.
I think you're right that there are decisions they made because of the fact that it was in 2.
Yeah. Yeah, the Joker's not in it in the first part like at all because of that. Or he waits till the end to come out of his comatose state for that. But I didn't remember that the second part opens black with voices over black, so that it doesn't look like it's it doesn't look like it's commercial break, which is what I thought it would look like. It looks like it's an intentional choice, and to make it one piece.
It's really cool. Like, if you showed this to anybody that wasn't aware of the fact that it was in 2, they'd never know.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, you don't have, like, Riker fire, and then it should be to be continued, but it just keeps going. It's not like that. For whatever reason, I haven't gone back to this. I will again.
Well, I mean, you don't go back to Dark Knight Returns that much, really.
No, but after today, I wish I had been. Like, I don't know what it is about Miller. Like, his stuff doesn't stick with me the first time. Like, and also I have this thing, and maybe you do too, where sometimes I have a blind spot when I'm told how important a thing is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if somebody tells me, or if, like, the whole universe makes a big deal out of how brilliant something is, there's a part of my analytical brain that, like, puts up a wall where I have a hard time, like, reading it for myself and making my own conclusions and determinations about stuff because I've been told what it's about.
Mm-hmm.
Or even if I don't know what it's supposed to be about, I'm like, it's hard for me not to accidentally try to figure out what the right answer is, as opposed to
what your read.
It's just me and the piece.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And today, finally sitting down reading this, I felt like it was just me and the piece.
That's good.
That's an important thing, I think. Well, anyway, everybody, thanks a lot for watching. We sure appreciate it. We will see you again tomorrow or Monday, whenever this falls. And the next thing is Dark Knight Rises, which, again, is going to be fascinating.
We'll be following DKR with DKR.
Right. It's going to be fascinating looking at that right after this. I wonder if there are people who saw this movie and then went to Rises and had a much more heightened sense of how much of that movie was borrowing from Dark Knight Returns because they had just looked at this. But anyway, this is going to be kind of a monumental moment for us because it's the first time it's the first time we'll have watched this movie together.
Yeah.
And
after talking about it for so long.
For 6 years. And it's the first commentary of this movie on the channel at all, which is, like with Dark Knight, again, mind-blowing. And obviously, Eric and I have said our piece on that movie. We've been somewhat infamous with some people about our disdain for some choices that were made with that movie. I don't think it's entirely unwatchable, and there's fun to be had. But
it's still made by one of the most competent filmmakers, or one of the most talented filmmakers working.
Yeah,
it's still an incredibly shot movie. It's some of the best actors working. Like. It's not unenjoyable to watch.
But it's got massive story character problems, and of course we have talked about that ad nauseum.
And we will talk about it ad nauseum again.
Yeah, hopefully maybe some new things will pop up that we haven't talked about.
Well, I haven't seen it since theaters.
But yeah, so it's going to be a really interesting watch, and we hope you'll join us for that. And that's what we're doing tomorrow. So strap in, folks, because that is not a short one. And in the meantime, I am Captain Logan.
And I'm Eric.
And we will see you again real shortly.